Hey guys, welcome to Fanfic Fanatics. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku became Justice of Pillar and fell for Ochaco? Part 1. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story as I will end it before it begins by Thicky67. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Izuku Pav. Morning. Unknown date. I shaped a muddy mound with bloody hands, slowly mixing the two foreign colors brown and red. The rain was coming down hard, but I didn't feel it. I couldn't feel much besides the mud as I finished the last one. I stood up as the rain tried to clean my muddy costume, but brown looks better than red. I wanted to stay and mourn, but I didn't have any more tears, so I let the sky do the crying for me. Lightning lit up the sky, illuminating the thousands of graves that I made. I let float bring me up as I flew away from my failure and the raging fire that continued to consume the many buildings that once housed the people in those graves. I flew by the two letters that gave me hope when I was younger, but now they're just letters. Izuku. If only I was faster. I turned my back to the inferno that used to be my high school and just started flying. Because now it was just a graveyard that was burning down. I don't know how long I flew or where I was even going, but I just continued. I just needed to clear my head. I needed to be by myself. Hey, who am I kidding? I'm going to be myself for a long time now. The last of Japan's population was in Ua, now it's just me, the useless Deku. The other nations have long abandoned us and now consider Japan a wasteland that no one touches. Even after I killed those two, they still refused, or I know they will refuse. I snapped out of thoughts as decided to look down at the once beautiful city of Musudafu, my hometown. You could barely tell it used to be a city besides the few remaining buildings that were on fire. I looked to my left and saw me and Shigaraki's first brawl before AFO joined. I could tell because it was as if a whole district just disappeared, like it turned to dust. I passed several more areas where we held our brawl, whether it be giant holes through buildings where I missed a punch or more patches of cities that got erased. Until I saw the spot where I ended those two lunatics. It was a giant crater that easily took up almost half of the former city, where I caved both their skulls in and ripped their hearts out. I was beyond angry at the time, but I don't regret my decision. Neither of those lunatics were redeemable. I flew a little longer until I saw something that I needed to see before I don't even know what to do next. I landed in front of my idol, my mentor, my master, well, just the metal statue of him. Somehow, it was still in good condition, but I didn't care about that. I just needed to talk to someone or anything. I knelt before the statue as I couldn't even bring myself to look at its face. Izuku. I did it, All Might. I stopped this accursed cycle. I killed them both. I know you wanted me to try and save Shigaraki, but he was too far gone. Plus neither of them deserved a chance to live. Good thing they turned on each other. It made it way easier to kill them. The pitter-patter of the rain made me think for a couple of seconds before I continued. Izuku. But I was too late to save the others at Ua. By the time I got there, it was already a bloodbath with no heroes left. Just traitors and villains. I'm sorry, All Might, but I was just so filled with rage that after I was done there was no one left. I clenched my fists in anger as I remembered all the bodies, all my friends. Ochaco. Mom. Eri. No, I didn't regret what I did to the survivors of that bloodbath, they all deserved it. Izuku. If only I was faster. No, if only I could be better. I punched the ground in anger, cracking it slightly even without OFA. Izuku. If only I was stronger. I punched the ground even harder, breaking the pavement, as I gritted my teeth in frustration. Not hearing the footsteps behind me getting closer. Izuku. If I could do things differently, then none of this. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm a failure. I already failed. Might as well just take that advice Bakugo gave me. What if you did get a second chance? What would you do? Narrator Pav. Izuku whirled around with OFA activated and threw a punch at the stranger. But as the punch was about to connect with the hooded figure, Izuku blinked and he was back to his kneeling position, as if he never moved. Izuku turned around again but didn't try to attack this time. Good, you learn from your mistakes. Izuku's eyes widened as his danger sense wasn't detecting ill intent but was still screaming at him that this man was dangerous. Izuku stared at the man as he tried to remember if he knew him or at least what his quirk was. The man was wearing a pure white cloak with a hood on hiding his face slightly, but even then Izuku couldn't see it that well but could clearly see the man's brown eyes. The man held a silver staff to his side but Izuku saw it had no decoration or anything else like a metal pole but it seemed to have weird symbols carved onto it that slightly glowed every once in a while. Now are you going to answer my question? Izuku clenched his fist in annoyance as the hooded man remained still waiting for the answer. Izuku. I would stop any of this from ever happening. No matter the costs. Izuku. No matter the costs. Now tell me who you are. My name no longer matters as it has lost its value due to time. The only thing that matters about me is my job. Izuku's sweat dropped at the identity reveal since it didn't tell him anything. Now what if I told you, I can give you the chance? Izuku narrowed his eyes at the man as if he was mocking Izuku. Izuku. What are you talking about? I am the god of time in the multiverse and I am giving you the chance to stop this carnage from ever happening. Izuku scoffed at the claim from the god, showing he didn't believe him. Izuku. Go back to the psych ward, old man, it's too dangerous for you out here. The ones that need the most help are always the most skeptical. The god tapped his staff on the ground lightly confusing Izuku. Then the sky started to change going from cloudy morning to a clear afternoon with a sunset in the distance. Izuku's mouth went wide as he stared at the sky before turning back to the god. Izuku. So, what are the conditions? Would it really matter if I told you beforehand? Izuku smiled softly for the first time in months. Izuku. No, it wouldn't. The god extended his hand for a shake that Izuku didn't hesitate to return. They both then disappeared into a brilliant white light then nothing. Izuku paused. I opened my eyes resulting me getting blinded by the light. It was so bright I couldn't see anything but I could still feel the god's hand. I tried to let go but he kept it firm. Hold on or you will be lost. Close your eyes and ignore the voices. I didn't understand what he meant but I listened anyway and closed my eyes stopping the pain. But the voices started to talk. I didn't understand what they were saying but they kept getting louder and louder. My ears were ringing as they started screaming at me then it went quiet. My ears stopped ringing and heard something that I thought I would never hear again. People talking, cars honking, children laughing. We're here. I opened my eyes and I almost cried when I saw the now restored city like the war never happened. The god and I were on the roof of a building. I quickly went to the edge and looked down. The people were talking, smiling, carefree. I collapsed to my knees with my hands held onto the rail for dear life as tears of joy started to fall to the floor. Izuku. It's true I have AAAS second chance. More crying. The god stood in the same spot as his white cloak swayed with the wind. I couldn't see it but he had a soft smile as he watched me break down. He slowly walked towards me as he tossed his staff in the air but instead of coming down it just turned into white particles. He put a hand behind his back as he offered the other one to help me up which I gladly accepted. Izuku. Thank you so much. It's fine Izuku. Trust me you deserve so much more but this is at most what I could do for you. Izuku. Now what are my conditions and consequences? There is only two. This is your timeline before everything started for you, before you mattered to the universe. Now let me ask again, would you still do this no matter the cost? Izuku. Yes. Would you still do this if there wasn't a happy ending for you? Izuku. Yes. I see. Well, you will figure out the first condition in a couple minutes so I won't tell you. Just know most events right now will happen in the same order as long as your interference isn't too great. So choose your opportunities wisely. Next. The god was interrupted by a decent explosion not too far away. My instincts told me to go there fast, which I was about to until my body refused to move. My eyes darted around and I noticed the birds in the sky were also frozen and that it was eerily quiet. This event is important to you, so let me explain the final consequence real quick. I listened as the god told me my fatal mistake. I was flying towards the explosion with a frown across my face as I remembered the god's final warning until he disappeared like he was never there. Thankfully, the god gave him some money so I could change and take a shower. Since, in the god's words, gods can smell too. And you stink. I landed on a roof that overlooked the explosion so I could get a general layout on what I needed to do. However, I couldn't help but feel like this was familiar. Izuku. A raging fire with 4 heroes struggling to stop it, and it seems from their body language a victim somewhere in the fire. This seems familiar. I was about to step in when I saw a kid run towards the fire. My eyes widened when I saw the green hair, red shoes, that black uniform and the yellow backpack. I fell back onto my butt as the god's words finally clicked into my head. Would you still do this if there wasn't a happy ending for you? I stood back up fast and looked towards the fire, and sure enough there was the explosive asshole I became friends with. I looked away from the incident with sadness as the realization of my future finally made sense. Izuku. This isn't for me, not anymore. Now it will only benefit this Izuku. No, it will save everyone. Mom, Ochaco, Eri, Aizawa-sensei, All Might, Kachan, everyone. I will change the future for them. No matter the cost. I stared with determination as I watched my mentor once again save the day with a single punch. Like he changes the weather with fist, I will change the future with my own. I clenched my fist as I stared at Mise. No, as I watched Deku get scolded by the heroes. Izuku Pav. I watched Deku walk without a purpose and broken towards his home. I stick to the rooftops of the small neighborhoods that he was walking through, and he just stared at the floor and continued his journey. Izuku. Did I really look that pathetic? I was knocked out of my thoughts as I saw Cock Bakugo run up to Deku and give the worst thank you in existence. God, how did I ever become friends with that? Deku walked a little but got cut off as All Might appeared in front of him. I listened a little more to make sure that I was the only outlier of this timeline. You also can become a hero. I deem you worthy of my quirk. Seeing my cue, I flew off towards the city so I could 1. Find some clothes, and 2. Find a job. Izuku Pav. Izuku. I failed to protect my world's present, but now I can ensure it a better future. Even if that future doesn't have a spot for me, I will lay my life down to give everyone else a spot. I landed in alleyway somewhere in Kamino Ward. I released a sigh as I started to take off my bloody costume and stuffing it inside a dirty grocery bag that was sticking out of the dumpster. I then walked into a thrift store with just my costumes, pants, and bare-chested. I was on the bad side of the city, so no one really questioned it. I bought a dark green zip-up hoodie with that middle pocket with some dark sweatpants and a hospital mask. I can't have cameras see a older Izuku Midoriya walking around. I left the store and walked a little bit, not really having anywhere to go. Now for a job that's going to be hard since technically I can't exist, so a job that doesn't ask a lot of questions, desperate for employees and pays just enough to survive. Now where can I find a job like that? As I thought that, a flyer smacked me in the face, causing me to flail a little before taking it off and looking at it. I read it a little and then saw the name of the company. I smiled sadly at it before walking towards the offices. Hopefully, they're still in because they're my only hope. I looked to the setting sun and couldn't help but chuckle. Izuku. I've never messed with cement before. I wonder if it's hard to clean out of clothes. Izuku Pav. Well, Mr. Sawyer, everything seems in check. I'll see you Monday. Thanks again for coming. Izuku. It's no problem, Mr. Uraraka. Till then, stay safe. Mr. Uraraka. You too as well, Mr. Sawyer. I walked out of the rundown trailer office with a small smile. Not like you could tell because of the hospital mask I was wearing. I pulled my hood up as I roamed the streets for an apartment building that was dirt cheap and didn't ask too many questions. Luckily I was in Kamino Ward, one of the rougher districts in Japan, and I wanted something close to those fuckers. Good thing Mr. Uraraka is desperate and didn't ask for any paperwork. Now let's scream * no get away. SHUTUP bitch. I stopped in my tracks and looked at the floor as the screaming continued. I looked around and saw the nightlife people didn't even so much as look in the direction of the alley the screams came from. Even the View heroes Izuku saw didn't even try to walk to the alley since they noticed no one was looking there. I clenched my fist in anger and, Izuku. No, I have to choose the right moments. I can't afford to mess up my only chance. I continued to walk down the sidewalk, passing by the alley without a second glance. I continued to walk while clenching my fist and gritting my teeth. You know what, fuck it. In an instant a ugly bastard was inside a wall with a broken body, and I continued my search without looking back. Then I did it again and again and again until I stopped 30 crimes in an hour. I finally looked up and I saw the bar that housed the future chaos that will rain down onto Japan. I was tempted to go in there and just kill them all. But I knew I needed to time the events or I'll fuck up my chance. I also need Class 1A to get stronger, and unfortunately I need those bastards to do that. I've decided, I'm not just going to make my future never happen, I'm going to make this timeline the perfect timeline. I will change this society even if I lose myself. No matter the cost. I turned around and laughed at the sight of a rundown apartment. I started walking towards it with an extra kick to my step. Landlord. We got 1 room on the first, 2 on the second floor and 7 on the third floor. The rent is $500 a month and you have 3 warnings for payment until I evict. Clear. Izuku. Crystal. Landlord. Good. Which floor? Izuku. Second. Any window views to the street? Landlord. 1. Want it? Izuku. Yes. Thank you. Landlord. No problem. Follow me, your room's 220. I followed the short bald man up the stairs, passing several questionably activities heard and seen from the apartments. It was 4-floor apartment complex with around 20 apartments on each floor. To say it looked like shit was an understatement. Rats, roaches, anything similar to that could be seen crawling around. But beggars can't be choosers. The landlord stopped in front of 220, which sure enough was right next to the bar. The landlord opened the door, revealing a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with a tiny kitchen connected to an even tinier living room. The floor was what looked like it used to be a gray carpet but had many stains that I easily recognized as blood. Landlord. This is it, don't make too much of a mess. The landlord handed me the key before walking out and closing the door behind him. I looked at the key and sighed as I threw it on a counter. I looked at the bare apartment with a blank stare before I walked to the balcony, and sure enough the bar was right there in clear view. I turned around and laid on the floor and closed my eyes to fall asleep. Because tomorrow was never guaranteed. Narrator Pav. 9 months after last chapter, the day before the entrance exam. Izuku was kneeling down in a hole, tying rebar together and putting bricks at every 3 feet, making a foundation for a sidewalk. Izuku stood up, taking of the baseball cap he was wearing and wiping his brow. Izuku was wearing a flannel shirt that was unbuttoned, revealing a white muscle shirt underneath that hid nothing to the eye. He also had a pair of blue jeans on with some simple work boots that were stained white, probably from some cement. The one thing that stood out about Izuku was that he was drastically taller and muscular compared to when he first arrived. A easy 6 feet at a very muscular build that easily attracted attention from the women that would walk by the construction sites. His hair was now pure black with a more trimmed look, as he didn't want to look too similar to his past self. However, he never knew that black hair dye was this expensive. I mean, seriously, it's a natural hair color. Anyways, Izuku got out of the hole, earning him many whistles due to the job being in downtown Tokyo. Izuku ignored them as he walked to Mr. Uraraka, who was looking at the plans. So far Izuku was the only man for the job, but due to his freakish strength, according to Mr. Uraraka, he was all that was needed. Izuku. Hey Mr. Uraraka. The rebar's done. Mr. Uraraka. Oh, good job, Mr. Sawyer. That means we should be able to have the concrete come tomorrow. Mr. Uraraka went to his truck real quick and came back with an envelope that he handed to Izuku, who quickly stashed it into his flannel. Mr. Uraraka. That's all for today, Mr. Sawyer. I'm sorry the check is so light. I promise the next one will make it up. Izuku. I already told Mr. Uraraka. It's fine, I'm not really doing this for the money. Anyways, see you tomorrow. 5. Mr. Uraraka. Correct. Have a good day, Mr. Sawyer. Izuku. You, too. Izuku started to walk away while buttoning his shirt. He looked to the sky and gave a guess that it was around 1-ish. Izuku didn't really have anything planned for the day, as he did most of his work during the night. He didn't think it was time for the pillars of justice to show themselves in the light. So far no one has seen a clear image of the pillars, just rumors and their attire. Izuku tried to stop his heroic nature from leaking out, but he couldn't stop himself from stepping in. So, he decided to become a vigilante in the worst part of the cities. To say he made an impact would be an understatement. He easily cut the crime down permanently and effectively by 90%. From once to 100 crimes stopped a day to barely 15 in his first week. Izuku no longer held back or showed mercy to the scum of the streets. So, During his reign it was quite common to find a couple bodies around or in alleys, with them either barely alive with no hope of walking again or dead. The police noticed though that the ones found dead were the ones that committed the more heinous crimes. Izuku's costume was simple and plain but got the job done. It was a hoodie, hospital mask and jeans or joggers with some black shoes. The way Izuku however threw suspicion away from him completely was with his quirks. He would change the color of his hoodie depending on what quirk he was going to use, and while out patrolling would only use that quirk. Which is what led to the belief that it was multiple people in the same vigilante group. Leading to the myth of the Pillars of Justice. Black hoodie, black whip known to be more lenient compared to the others. Usually only end up with broken bones. Gray hoodie, smokescreen, if it becomes too smoky it's already too late. Yellow hoodie, Fajan. Red hoodie, danger sense, it's like he knows what you're going to do next. Green hoodie, OFA, you're dead before you even saw the color green. Float was his public quirk, making suspicion even more off of him. Luckily, Izuku hasn't ran into a single hero due to the fact it was so late when he went out and the fact it was in an area heroes never went into the first place. Izuku finally reached his apartment, which was getting some renovations due to the gang that was harassing the landlord all of a sudden disappeared. In general, the neighborhood has gotten safer, but not out of deterrence like All Might but out of fear instead. Izuku sat on his bed and looked at the calendar with hard eyes. The calendar had scribbled all over it and it didn't look complete. For example, first 3 dates marked weren't even in the same month. Honestly looked like something a serial killer would make. Anyways, the first date that was marked was tomorrow. Tomorrow was the entrance exam, and afterwards Izuku was going to pay a visit to a certain boy that made them lose everything. Izuku reached into his pocket and took out a wallet. He unfolded a photo from it. The photo was scorched in the corners, had some red spots on it and it looked worn out. On the photo was a picture of a 17-year-old Izuku and Ochaco with the older Eri all hugging together with soft smiles. One of the few moments Izuku was able to feel happy after the war had started. Izuku. I have to change this. No matter the cost. The next day, after the entrance exam, Izuku was standing on the roof of a building in his black hoodie, a couple miles away from UA. Izuku fixed his hood a little so the sunset's glare didn't hit his eyes. He needed to spot his target. He couldn't afford to mess this up. He needed the Polar Sphere to seep into all of Japan. Izuku saw the target's sedan and knew it was time. Izuku jumped off the edge and used Black Whip to slingshot himself above the sedan and landed on the roof of it, making the car swerve for a little. Izuku extended his right hand, making several black tendrils that ripped the doors off and dragging a guards out from the passenger seat, dropping him into the street. Izuku then made 2 more tendrils that ripped out the front left wheel and the back right wheel, causing the car to lose control and to flip. Izuku jumped off before it did and landed safely. The sedan flipped several times before landing on its roof and sliding a little bit. Izuku walked to the sedan with a glare. Everything around them came to a stop as the people of the city and the rest of Japan stared at the first true sighting of one of the pillars. No one dared to move or interfere, not even some of the heroes that were nearby watching. The aura of the man in black screamed pain. One rookie hero tried to jump Izuku while he was walking towards the down car, but a tendril erupted from Izuku's back, whacking the hero into a lamppost, causing it to crumble inwards. Izuku sent another tendril to drag a man out of the car, causing the man to scream in pain as he was lifted in the air by the tendril as it wrapped around him like an anaconda. The man's left leg was obviously broken, with it bending in a different direction. Blood was pouring down the man's forehead, staining the fancy clothes and his blonde hair. The man's glasses were broken as they barely had the lens in. Izuku looked past the man and saw what he was after. The fear-filled face of Yuga Aoyama. Izuku extended his left hand, launching a tendril that wrapped around Aoyama's neck, bringing him face to Izuku. Izuku kept a firm grip on Aoyama's neck as he turned his attention to the father. Aoyama's father. Please stop. Why are you doing this? Please just put him down. Izuku. No, only if you answer my question. Aoyama's father. Okay. What is it? Izuku. Has that bastard made contact with you? Aoyama's father. Who are you talking about? Izuku. The one that gave your son a present. Aoyama's father widened his eyes in shock, causing Izuku to narrow his and unconsciously tighten his grip on both of them, making them grunt in pain. Aoyama's father. I don't know what you're talking about. Izuku. I see. A tendril shot out of Izuku's forearm and wrapped around Aoyama's right wrist. Crack! Aoyama's screams filled the streets, making the crowd cringe and grab their own wrist. Izuku. Did that jog your memory, Mr. Aoyama? Aoyama's father. Yes, he messaged us. He said to start reporting to him. Izuku. Good. Now listen to me right now. Because this is very important. Izuku brought them closer as his eyes stared into their souls with anger and malice. Izuku. Continue with your little rat tactics, but I'm warning you, if anyone dies because of you three, I will kill all three of you. Aoyama's father. But he'll kill us if we don't give him what he wants. Izuku. So, that makes it all right to put other people in danger instead. The two looked away from Izuku's eyes, making him start to lose his temper. But he quickly cooled himself down and dropped the two rats to the floor, causing them to cry in pain. Izuku turned around and launched two tendrils to lampposts before pulling himself back and launching himself into the air. Izuku swung away, letting the paramedics, police and heroes finally reach the Aoyama family. Izuku wanted to kill them so bad, but they're needed for the future events to happen. He knows they'll still feed him information, so in eyes they were a lost cause. No better than villains. Izuku walked into his apartment after have changed on the roof of a nearby building into a shirt that said muscle shirt. Izuku put down his yellow backpack and stared at the calendar as he put a checkmark on the first date. The next date on the list had a small drawing of a red hat with horns. Narrator Pav. A early 17-year-old Izuku and Ochaco could be seen laying together on a bed, cuddling with the sheets up to their shoulders. Ochaco was wrapped around Izuku's torso while Izuku had an arm around her with his hand resting on her head. The two were just laying there staring at the ceiling of what looked like a messy dorm room with several cracks lining the ceilings. However, it was a peaceful quiet, as the two didn't want to be anywhere else right now but together. Since this will most likely be their last time together, 'cause tomorrow will truly be the final battle. Izuku. Are your parents in the bunker? Ochaco. Yeah, they got in without trouble. What about your mom and Eri? Izuku. Yeah, they went in fine. Well, my mother was worried and caused a scene. Yaoyorozu-san had to make like 3 buckets for her tears so she wouldn't flood the bunker. Ochaco. Giggle. What do you expect? You're her only child that is about to face 2 of the most dangerous beings in human history. How would you feel if our child had to fight that? Izuku. Smirks. Ochaco. Blushes. Oh hush. We're basically married already. Izuku. I love you. Izuku. I love you, too. The two lovers fell asleep together, as tomorrow would decide the future of their country and maybe the world. The now 18-year-old Izuku opened his eyes from his sleep as he was met with the ceiling of his dingy apartment. Izuku sighed as he got up and wiped the tears from his eyes. Izuku sat up on his bed and put a hand through his now black hair while shirtless, showing the many scars that littered his body but also the compact muscles that looked like they could cut diamonds. He looked at the calendar across from his bed and gave a sigh as he saw today he would have to fight that loudmouth. Izuku. Can I kill him? Izuku did the calculations in his head to see how bad the timeline would diverge if he were to kill Muscular or even have him imprisoned. Since, if the timeline diverged too much, then it would be hard to track down the right events, or some of them might not even happen. Izuku. Would the training camp mostly be the same? Yes, but Kota would be happier or not there at all. Also, I wouldn't sustain that nasty arm injury, so that would be a plus. However, if Kota isn't there for me to protect, then there is a high chance I would be involved in a different fight. In conclusion, there is a high chance that the timeline will continue normally and that the Kamino incident will still happen. Izuku stood up and started putting on a green hoodie as he saw the water hose incident would happen in a couple of hours. Izuku opened his window of his balcony and disappeared in a flicker as he made his way to downtown Tokyo. He has decided Muscular's fate. A loud boom could be heard as a pillar of smoke rose from a bank in Tokyo. A large mass of walking muscle busted through the front doors of the bank, launching them into the street, taking out several cars and injuring several pedestrians. The lump of muscle started laughing manically as it started to jump away with a bag of money. A hero tried to stand in his way but she got sent into a bus with a quick backhand. Muscular kept running causing havoc while laughing until a jet of water slammed him into a lamppost. Muscular looked up with a scowl at two heroes who were wearing matching costumes. The male of the two having two extended hands dripping with water. The female then raised her hand causing all the water around Muscular to rise, then she closed her hand making the water wrap around Muscular tight like chains. Bystander 1. Look, it's the water hose duo. Bystander 2. Aren't they upcoming? Bystander 3. Such a strong quirk combination. Water hose everyone. Please evacuate. We'll handle this. Muscular. Like hell, weaklings like you could stop me. Muscular started growing bigger, forcing the woman water hose to drop the trap and back up as Muscular launched himself at her. The male water hose sent another water jet sending Muscular flying and doing a good amount of damage to his arm. Muscular scowled as the female water hose pointed down causing water shackles to form around his ankles. She then punched upwards causing a water fist to hit Muscular with an uppercut to the face sending him flying. Muscular got up again even more angry as a bunch of no-listers were kicking his ass. Muscular then had a feral grin as he picked up a car with a family and launched it at the two heroes. They both widened their eyes as they saw the car coming towards them. The female water hose quickly raised her hands to catch it. Two water hands formed catching it making the woman grunt in pain as her nose started to bleed. The male looked to his wife with concern before looking back at Muscular but noticing he was gone. The man turned back in horror as he saw Muscular lift his fist to take out the distracted female water hose. Boom! A massive shockwave occurred as air was blasted everywhere causing the water hoses fall off their feet, the windows of the nearby skyscrapers getting obliterated into nothing, and it made the woman drop the car, but luckily the people inside were still fine. The woman water hose looked up to see a young man in a green hoodie standing where Muscular was just a second ago. The two heroes and all the bystanders stood in shock as the strongest of the pillars has finally made their appearance. It was silent as Izuku walked slowly towards the crater where Muscular was in. Muscular. What the it's you. Finally a real challenge. Fight me. Give me a challenge. Muscular climbed out of the crate with a feral grin as Izuku stopped a couple feet away and just stared at the muscle freak power-up. The green eyes from under the hood stared into Muscular's soul with malice causing the man to actually question himself if this was a good idea. Because all those eyes promised was a slow death. Muscular ignored the cowardly thoughts as he continued to grow bigger until he was just a lump of muscle. Muscular started running at Izuku but Izuku stared at him without moving a muscle. Muscular. Show me true power. Make me stronger. Give me a challenge. Muscular felt a presence behind him causing him to widen his eyes in fear. Muscular could feel it, the feeling of impending doom as he heard a whisper behind him. Izuku. No. Izuku was behind Muscular in an instant and released a punch straight into the back of Muscular's neck sending him flying into a wall. Muscle was torn to shreds by the wind pressure. Muscular bleed in the hole of the wall as he twitched every once in a while before finally went still. Izuku disappeared in a flicker as the crowds watched the water hose duo check the pulse of Muscular. The man quickly called for an ambulance to come since he was still alive but fading fast. Izuku watched them try and save the murderer's life from a rooftop overlooking the scene. He couldn't help but feel anger at the attempt. He quickly drowned his anger away as he had let Muscular live on purpose so he can live through his punishment. Izuku. What's the worst punishment for someone hungry for blood and power? Simple. Take away their means to use their power and to gain more. For Muscular it was his body and I simply just took his body from him. Can't be much of a threat if you can't move anything. Izuku looked over his body real quick and gave himself a satisfied nod as he turned around to walk away. After a couple of steps he disappeared into a flicker as he decided he might as well make some progress in Tokyo. The villains here needed a little taste of fear. Narrator Pav. A 17-year-old Izuku and Bakugo could be seen looking over the remaining people of UA from a busted-down dorm's roof with the sunrise rising behind them making them glow. Izuku was slightly taller than Bakugo, but right now Bakugo is buffer compared to Izuku since Izuku was still a little on the lean muscular side. Both their hero costumes were ragged with Izuku's barely even attached to him with his arms completely exposed with only his gloves on, but they looked brown now and his pants looked more like shorts. Torino's scarf was lost long ago in one of his many battles. Bakugo's costume didn't look any better as both grenade gauntlets were lost in his battle with Dabi, but you could still see his original costume underneath all the dirt and grime. The reason they haven't been able to repair their support items or costumes is because of the last assault on Ua. The villains attacked the support department, destroying the building and everyone in it. Hatsume made a last stand, but it wasn't enough to stop them. The most noticeable thing now about Bakugo though was the massive burn scar that took up the entire right side of his face. The eye on that side was completely white, showing it was blind, while his lone red eye on his left side just stared down at the heroes getting ready for an assault on a Nomu factory. 100, barely 100 heroes left, most of them just students of the former school of Ua. After the failed split-up tactic on the League, the only ranked heroes left afterwards were Best Jeanist and Hawks. It didn't take long for them to die afterwards though. Now it was just them against the villains. Izuku. Kachan. Have you heard anything from Shiketsu or Kami? Bakugo. We both know it's gone. Izuku. Even Cam. We're all alone. Izuku. Izuku. I was afraid so. I'm sorry about Cam. Bakugo. It's fine. The two stood in silence as they let the air blow into their hair. The two were seen as the leaders of the remaining heroes, since they were probably the oldest heroes among the remaining heroes and heroes in training. Nezu fell in the last assault on Ua. All Might fell when a high-end was sent to destroy the Hero Association. Aizawa was killed by Toga during the same assault on Ua that ended Nezu. 3/4 of 1A and 1B were dead. Shoto perished against his brother Dabi, but Bakugo avenged him at the cost of his eye. What's worse was half of Ua is gone, both population and building-wise. But the group has managed for the last 2 or so years, with Izuku being the calm and collected leader and Bakugo as the angry explosion that will blow down anything in his way. Bakugo. Any word from the other countries? Izuku. Yeah, a message came this morning from the UN. Bakugo. Really? What did they say? Izuku. They threw us to the wolves. Kachan. We're on our own completely. They made a deal with AFO. They won't interfere as long as AFO stays out of their countries. Bakugo. That's tisk bunch of fucking cowards. Izuku. Bakugo. Izuku, you have to end this madness before we lose any more. Izuku. IW. Ring. Izuku slammed his hand down on an alarm clock, breaking it. He laid in silence on his bed as the morning rays peeked through his curtains. He stared at the ceiling with a neutral look that held no emotion before sitting up and turning towards his calendar. According to the calendar, in 3 days the USJ incident will take place, and Izuku couldn't help but worry about the changes it might experience due to him being there. Izuku. Ah, screw it. Izuku stood up and got ready for work as he decided what he was going to do tonight. For now though, he needed to get to work. As Izuku was getting dressed, he couldn't help but chuckle as he remembered when some companies tried to make toys of his group. As expected, the Hero Association shut down any attempt right away. Rumor has it that it probably would have outsold All Might, especially the red hoodie. Izuku didn't know why though. He hardly used that one. Crime has dropped down all over the country, not just in the Kamino ward anymore. Ever since Izuku crippled Muscular, all the criminals in every city decided it probably wasn't a good idea anymore to commit crimes during the day. So, crime has dropped by almost 90%, which Izuku knew pissed off a certain man-child, though Izuku feared whether this would have a negative or positive effect on the USJ. Which is why he will pay a visit to 3 special people in these coming days. The first tonight and the 2 tomorrow. Midnight of the same day *. Aizawa always wanted to be a hero, not out of dreams but out of responsibility. He believed it was his responsibility to become a hero due to the nature of his quirk. A quirk that can cancel other people's quirks, the perfect quirk to be a hero or a soldier. A soldier, something Aizawa's father wanted him to become, but to be honest, the 6-year-old Aizawa didn't want to be either. He just wanted to be a kid. However, that stopped when his dad started to come home drunk, attacked his mother and tried to go to his sister's room. That was the day Aizawa realized the gravity of his quirk's power, and the day Aizawa's sleep pattern never returned to normal, nor his household. Since that day, Aizawa's quirk training was standing guard in front of the room his sister and mother now shared, for 8 long years, until it was time for his entrance exam at Ua. Now the 30-year-old man had only one goal for the night: do his normal patrol and find one of those pillars, and bring them to justice. Aizawa didn't think much of them when the first rumors spread about them. Vigilantes were a dime a dozen. with them usually getting caught by the heroes or killed by the villains. As the months passed though, Aizawa soon learned that this group was different. They were calculated, brutal on their victims, very strong control with their quirks, and they seemed to know where to be at the right times. They were young, even though they never showed their face and hardly talked. Aizawa could tell they were young, probably a third year in high school at most. That's why Nezu gave him the order to capture one and try a new rehabilitation program for them. Aizawa didn't agree with his boss, but he listened to him anyway. Now Aizawa was crouching on a rooftop looking over the nightlife of the Camino ward as he searched the crowded streets for crime or a hoodie wearer. The full moon illuminated the streets as it shined bright, showing that tonight was definitely going to be strange. Though Aizawa has been patrolling for a solid 2 hours already and he hasn't seen a single crime nor disturbance, has this group's fearmongering really cut this deep into the district? Beautiful, isn't it? Aizawa jumped back from the ledge, putting himself in the middle of the roof as he put on his goggles and activated his quirk. Standing right next to where Aizawa was crouching stood a tall figure in a red hoodie, black jeans and red shoes. The figure still had his back turned to Aizawa as it looked down at the passing crowds. A society that doesn't have to fear when they want to go out at night. A society that makes villains a bunch of cowards. Aizawa, it's fearmongering. You're no better than a tyrant. Stop this madness and turn yourself in, boy. You can still become a hero. You have no clue what a tyrant truly is, Eraserhead. I do, and trust me, I'm being generous with these. Scum. Inhale, exhale. I didn't come find you to trade philosophies, I'm here to warn you. Aizawa. Threats won't get you anywhere, boy. Aizawa sent his scarf at Izuku's legs, aiming to capture him before things get ugly. However, he wasn't expecting the young vigilante to easily dodge the scarf with his back turned, with a backflip landing a few feet behind Aizawa. But he made no move to attack Aizawa, he instead crossed his arms and gave the hero an unamused look. Aizawa quickly charged the vigilante, throwing several punches and kicks, but Izuku never uncrossed his arms as he casually dodged the attacks. Frustrated, Aizawa went for an overhead dual hammer strike, but Izuku sidestepped and gave an open palm to the diaphragm of Aizawa, knocking the wind out of him and sending him backwards. Aizawa looked up at the vigilante from the ground with a glare as he momentarily deactivated his quirk. Aizawa. What the hell is his quirk? Izuku. I wasn't threatening you, Eraserhead. I'm here to warn you that the security breach at UA wasn't a public statement nor the media. Aizawa. What are you talking about? Izuku. You're going to the USJ in a couple days, correct, Aizawa? Aizawa's face remained neutral, but his fingers twitched slightly, giving Izuku his answer. So, he continued by making another point to make sure Aizawa knew he meant business and that his info was legit. Izuku. Yuga Aoyama Seat 1, Mina Ishido Seat 2, Tsuyu Asui Seat 3, Tenya Ida Seat 4, Ochaco Uraraka Seat 5. Aizawa's eyes widened in horror as he started listed his students' names and seat numbers. He couldn't move, he was frozen in fear for his students. Izuku. Mashirao Ojiro Seat 6, Denki Kaminari Seat 7, Eijiro Kirishima Seat 8, Izuku Midoriya Seat 9. Aizawa raised his eyebrows slightly at why he got one wrong. Izuku continued to list each seat number after that without a problem, with him only switching his and Kota's seats. Aizawa stood up and got ready to fight again, but Izuku just crossed his arm again. Izuku. The USJ is compromised, showed Aizawa. If you don't believe me, at least take more teachers besides All Might and 13. This will not be the last time we see each other, Eraserhead. Before Aizawa could do anything, Izuku punched a steam pipe, making smoke go all over the roof, giving Izuku the escape he needed. Aizawa sighed as he took off his goggles and rubbed his eyes in annoyance. He needed to talk with Nezu and the other teachers as soon as possible. *6 of the next day. Nezu was walking down the halls of his school with a small cup of tea he was sipping on as he walked towards his office. The mouse thing had a small smile as he reached the door, as Aizawa had called him a little while ago, saying he has news about the group of vigilantes. A young group full of potential with the aim of a better tomorrow. A little brutal on their crime stopping, but Nezu couldn't deny the results they had on Japan. They did something that not even All Might was able to accomplish. They brought the fear of death straight into criminals' souls. With All Might it was the fear of imprisonment, but they were different. Nezu walked into his office with a smile, but it was soon replaced with look of surprise as a figure in a red hoodie could be seen sitting on one of his couches meant for guests. The figure turned to Nezu showing dull green eyes that seemed hold nothing for Nezu to work with. However, Nezu recognized those eyes instantly, the eyes of someone that was broken and only has one goal on their mind. The end. He knows them because he used to have the same eyes. His eyes look like Kanau's and Giyu's but just green instead. Nezu walked towards the couch that faced its twin. As Nezu put his tea on the table he subtly reached for a remote in between his cushion. It was meant for emergencies and would alert the staff of an intruder instantly. He had dozens all over his office, but Nezu's heart sank when he felt the remote was gone. Thud. Nezu looked to the table where sound originated from and saw the remote laying on it broken. Not yet, Principal Nezu. We need to talk. Nezu. Small inhale small exhale of course Mr. Question mark colon ... Nezu. Right, let's get down to business and. The king is still alive and has found himself a prince. Nezu. Wah, your king failed his mission the former queen gave me. Now your king will force his prince in finishing the job the king failed in completing. Nezu's quirked brain started to work at lightning speeds trying to figure out the riddle or hidden meaning. Then the conclusion finally came to him, but it couldn't be. There's no way a random team could come across this information. Nezu looked up at the figure with shock, letting Izuku know he got his point across and that it was time to visit the last person on his list. Izuku stood up and gave one final look at Nezu before adding something. Izuku. Prepare Nezu because a war is coming that will destroy this country. Until we meet again. As Izuku made his way to the window the door busted open revealing Snipe as he opened fire on Izuku. Izuku easily dodged all the shots as he broke through the window disappearing into the city. Snipe went to the window shooting potshots at Izuku but he was already long gone. Snipe. You okay boss? I came because you weren't answering your calls. Nezu. I'm fine Snipe, the young man meant no harm. Have the teachers meet in the conference room in 1 hour. Where is All Might? Snipe. He went out to the city to get donuts for Aizawa's meeting. Nezu. Call him back immediately. This is important. Elsewhere, Skella Might could be seen walking back to Ua with 2 bags full of circle donuts. He sighed in satisfaction as he passed by several passing families. The streets have been more peaceful since the emergence of those. Well, All Might didn't know what to make of them. He couldn't deny the positive effect it had on the people's morale and overall safety, but he couldn't ignore all the brutality this group held to villains. It was concerning, considering that Nezu believed they were barely third years, and if he was right, it made All Might wonder what they went through to become like that. All Might took a alley to get to Ua faster as he knew most likely a criminal wouldn't appear. As he was walking down it he heard a thump behind him, causing him to turn around. All Might's eyes widened as he saw a man in a red hoodie standing in the middle of the alleyway staring right at him. Next to the hooded man on the floor was a bloodied corpse that looked like it used to be a middle-aged man. It was obvious he was dead, evident by the awkward angle of the corpse's head. All Might was tempted to transform, but he couldn't help but feel the nagging feeling in the back of his head, that it would be a bad idea if he did. Hello All Might. All Might instantly buffed up as he faced the hooded man in his full form. All Might towered over the young man, but he didn't even flinch from the show of power. All Might. Hello young man. You seem to be one of those pillars, correct? What did this poor soul do that deserved that fate? He's a info broker for the man that you failed to kill. He refused to tell me something I asked, so I made sure he won't blab to that son of a bitch. All Might froze as he felt the world cave from under him. He couldn't mean him right. No, he has to be dead. I destroyed his head. I saw his corpse. Those were some of the thoughts that floated around All Might's head, not even realizing he'd transformed from the shock. Izuku remained still and neutral as he let his words sink in. Izuku. All Might, you must become a better teacher, not just for your students but for the 9th as well. This snapped All Might out of his thoughts as he retransformed and glared at the hooded man. All Might. How do you? Izuku. That's not important, All Might. However, you stepping up as a teacher for the 9th is important. I know you were taking your time because you thought that bastard was dead. He isn't, so you must prepare, and for the day of the USJ, you have to be there on time. Izuku started walking backwards into the crowd of the morning commute. By the time All Might noticed, Izuku had already blended in with the crowd. All Might cursed as he picked up his phone that ringing. Sure enough, it was Snipe telling him that he needed to get to campus right away. All Might said he'll be there soon. All Might then dialed the police, telling them he found a body as he jumped towards the campus. Izuku watched from the streets at the jumping figure of All Might with a sad smile. He sighed as he started to walk home. Izuku. Hopefully they listen to my advice. Narrator Pav. The day before the USJ incident. The UA staff could be seen in their meeting room with all the teachers sitting around the round table with Nezu at the head. The door opened, revealing a skinny Might who quickly sat down, saying he's sorry for being late. Nezu nodded at him as he scanned over the room. Most of the teachers had the look of curiosity, as most didn't know why they were called. Aizawa and All Might had a thoughtful look as if they were thinking over something, and Nezu had an unreadable expression. Nezu cleared his throat, causing the soft murmurs among the teachers to halt and signify it was time to start. Nezu. Let us begin this meeting, shall we? Now Aizawa, you told me to call this emergency meeting. Once you're done I want to add something. Until then take it away, Aizawa. Aizawa. Thank you, Principal Nezu. The reason I called this meeting is because last night I ran into one of those pillars. It was present Mike. Which one? Aizawa stares at him before continuing. Aizawa. Sigh, the red one. Anyways, they. Smentos. What's his quirk? Aizawa. I don't know. Anyways. Midnight. Was he hot? Aizawa slammed his fist on the table and activated his quirk, making everyone shut up as they could feel his blood pressure rise. Aizawa glared at all of them for a while before he let out a long sigh and deactivated his quirk while rubbing his eyes. Aizawa. As I was saying before I was interrupted. Here they know too much. Nezu. What do you mean, Aizawa? Plus, how did you find one of them anyway? Aizawa. I didn't find them, they found me. It seems like they were looking for me so they could pass along information they came across, probably from the underground. I tried to fight him, but I couldn't even touch him even with my quirk activated. It's like he knew what I was going to do before I even did it. Vlad King. What was the info? Aizawa. He knew about the trip to the USJ tomorrow and that the USJ is compromised. The breach of UA's wall yesterday wasn't just a statement but a distraction as well. Nezu. A distraction to steal some files, and it seems a schedule. Any proof his information is true? Aizawa. No, but he proved it another way. Nezu. Explain. Aizawa. He knew the name of every single 1A student along with their names and seat numbers. Except, the thing is he got two wrong. All Might. Who? Aizawa. He didn't get the names wrong, just the seat numbers. He said Izuku Midoriya was seat 9 and Koji Koda as seat 18. Even though they are reversed, but he said it like he meant to do it, so I don't know what that means. All Might. It can't be, they know. Nezu. Interesting, they learned a nation-level secret. Snipe. So, what do we do? Do we take this killer's word for it or ignore the warnings? I say we just cancel the trip entirely. Aizawa. I agree, I don't want to put my kids at risk even if it is just a lie. Though, the vigilante did say he didn't care if I believed him or not. What do you say, Principal Nezu? Nezu just sat in his seat while taking a sip of his tea. To others it may look like Nezu is ignoring Aizawa, but everyone in the room knows he's just looking at all the possibilities. Finally, the mouse thing put his cup down and looked at the staff with determined eyes. Nezu. Simple, we go along with the schedule. Staff. What? Nezu raised his paw signifying the staff to settle down so he could explain. They eventually did quiet down, causing the rat to smile. Nezu. The reason I say this is because I believe the vigilante, that we will be attacked at the USJ. I also believe that if we don't go then our future pros will not be ready for something that is coming. This morning the same pillar visited me, giving me a similar warning but far darker. If what this vigilante has told me is true, then our very nation itself could be doomed due to the people in charge of this attack. Plus the fact they came to us with this information in the first place shows that somewhere under those hoodies there is the heart of heroes. I have feeling one of them will most likely be nearby in case things go wrong, which is why I will not be adding more teacher besides All Might, Aizawa and 13. Instead you three will message us every 5 minutes while you're there, and if you go dark we send the cavalry. The staff nodded solemnly at that the plan since it made sense to them and usually even though he outright acted insane sometimes, they trusted Nezu when it came to things like this. Nezu gave a thank you nod before turning serious again making the staff alert once more. Nezu. Though with this news if the attack does happen then I assume you understand the implications of it, correct? No one needed to say it as it was clear on what the principal meant. They have a traitor. Nezu. We'll discuss that at a future date. Now return to your classrooms. All might stay behind. The teachers filtered out leaving the skeleton and mouse alone. Nezu. Yagi call everyone that knows to meet here tonight. We have a lot to discuss. Toshinori. Right away Nezu. I'll start with Tor. Nezu. Toshinori. I meant everyone. Toshinori. You couldn't. Fine I'll call him later. Nezu. Thank you. You may leave and bring the ninth as well. Got it. The buffed up All Might walked out of the room with his signature smile, but to trained eyes you could see the annoyance on his face as he knew who he had to call in a little bit. That night at UA, 8 p.m. Two figures could be seen walking through the hallways as they made their way to a conference room. The moonlight glowed through the window of the hallway illuminating the figures showing Skelemite in his usual suit and his very nervous successor Izuku Midoriya who was sweating bullets in his school uniform, since he was told to look nice and that was the nicest clothes he owned. All Might didn't tell Deku why they were having this meeting but instead just said this is very important and concerns OFA. Also that he'll meet very important people and should make a good impression. So as expected half of Deku's closet was instantly denied. He learned the hard way that he had no sense of fashion. Deku looked at the door with a scared look as they stopped in front of the door to the conference room. All Might sensing his successor's worries put a caring hand on his back telling him he'll be fine. Deku steeled himself and nodded saying he's ready, making All Might gain a smile as he turned the door open revealing that they were the last to arrive. Sitting around the large table was the principal of UA Nezu at the head of the table who gave them a small nod. On his right was a middle-aged man in a tan trench coat who gave the pair a small smile. On Nezu's left was Recovery Girl who gave a friendly wave. Next to the detective was a hero Izuku recognized as Sir Night-Eye who gave All Might a neutral look before narrowing his eyes at Deku and the last person who was an old man who was sitting next to Recovery Girl. Deku didn't recognize him and the hard stare that was directed at him made him shiver. It got worse when it turned into a wicked grin. Nezu. Good you're here. Now we can begin. The two sat down at the end of the table both waiting patiently for the news. Night-Eye. All Might. Night-Eye. Night-Eye. You never inspected Mirio like you promised. All Might. I said I'd think about it. I never said I would. Night-Eye. But Mirio's the perfect. All Might. Enough. It's not like it's my choice anymore. Night-Eye. You can't mean. Nezu. Exactly Night-Eye it's already too late to complain about that. We have bigger problems. One of those, pillars, visited me this morning and he gave me grave news that spells disaster if it's true. GT. Why trust a vigilante? Nezu. What is a vigilante but just a citizen that couldn't stand by and watch anymore? Detective. What did he say Nezu? Nezu. He talked in riddles as if he couldn't say it directly but knew I could figure it out. His message was loud and clear though, All for One is still alive. Silence filled the room as everyone's eyes widened at the revelation except Deku who looked lost. Deku. Who's All for One? Everyone looked at him before turning towards a nervous All Might who was scratching the back of his head before shrugging. He quickly caught Deku up after a glare from Gran Torino and then Deku gasped at the news. Night-Eye stood up and glared at Deku causing him to shrink into himself until a buffed up All Might stood in front of him. Night-Eye. Really? This is the best you could find? Mirio is a way better candidate than this boy. All Might. And I told you the users decide their successors not the sidekicks. Night-Eye. One for All deserves strength and the heart of a hero. All Might. No, the only true requirement to wield One for All is to have the heart of a hero. The power will follow slowly afterwards. Giving this much power to someone that has always known just power and success, is just asking for disaster. Which is something you never understood. Night-Eye. That may be the case but you and I both know Mirio is a superior in all forms compared to this kid. All Might. You may be right about that for now. However, you said it yourself sidekick, he is just a kid barely entering high school and barely getting used to a quirk. Yet you compare him to a young adult that has had his quirk since his was 4, has a better body due to age, more experience and has been trained by you for a while just to be a candidate. Of course he is going to be the better choice at this moment, but he wasn't my choice and you got to deal with that. Nezu. Now on to the second issue that needs to be discussed. It seems that the succession between All Might and Midoriya has been discovered. Whether we have a mole or not is unknown. The tension in room grew high since this could spell bad news. Deku felt dread as he realized slowly what might happen to his mother if it truly got leaked. GT. How? Nezu. I don't know. However, we know for certain that the vigilante group, Pillars, know that Izuku Midoriya is the 9th user of OFA and that All Might is both injured and weaker. Whether AFO knows or not is unknown. To stay on the safe side though we will jump to precautions as if he knows. Gran Torino will join UA as an personal tutor that will select students to help train, which will obviously be rigged to just train Midoriya. Next Midoriya, we will over your mother a job here at UA to be elective teacher for the Gen Ed students as in home eco, and nursing teacher, it's your job to convince her to take it. Finally, I will institute a dorm system for all our students with separate ones for the teachers as well. Which is why I need Midoriya to convince his mother to join the staff. Everyone thought it was a solid plan until Deku stood up and bowed towards Nezu with an anxious expression. Deku. I'm sorry Principal Nezu. But I can't accept all this special treatment, it feels like I'm cheating. Please just, Nezu. Stop Midoriya. I think you need to realize something, you are our only hope after All Might. If AFO is still alive you need all the help you can get to get stronger. None of this was up to negotiation. Starting in 2 days you will start your private training with Gran Torino and your mother will get the job offer tomorrow morning. Midoriya, you're far too important to even consider not doing this because of something as silly as cheating. If that was the case, wouldn't your classmate Todoroki be cheating, since he has been trained by his father, the number 2 hero, since he was 4 years old? End of discussion. Deku. I understand Principal Nezu, I'm sorry for speaking out of turn. Nezu. It's fine Midoriya, you just need to get it into your head that you're important and that your needs matter. Anyways, that concludes this emergency meeting, be safe. Everyone slowly left the room with Gran Torino giving a feral grin to Deku, making him cower a little. As Night Eye gave one last look towards All Might, giving a sad look before looking at the cowering Deku, making his face turn into a scowl, and walked away. Detective gave a curt nod before leaving and Recovery Girl just went wherever old people go at night. Nezu remained in the conference sitting in his chair before clasping his hands together in front of him while closing his eyes. For the first time in a long time Nezu prayed to whatever was above. The next day *. Memory time. The clouds were dark, threading a thunderstorm, but Izuku didn't care. He was flying through the war-torn city meeting his fate. Izuku saw an explosion go off in the distance, making him activate Fajin, causing him to arrive instantly, seeing a Nomu lab had blown up, taking out whoever was inside. Izuku stared at it as the rain started to pour down. Izuku. Seems like the raid was a success. Good, the others should be arriving back soon. Why did Aoyama want me to go back and check? Eyes widen. Izuku tilted his head back as Danger Sense screamed at him to dodge. As his head went back, a hand barely missed him, followed by a white blur that stopped a couple buildings behind Izuku. Izuku turned around with a glare as he looked at the figure that was in a tattered black cloak and had long scruffy white hair, who returned the glare with a crazed smile. Izuku. Venom. Shigaraki. Shigaraki. Happy. Deku. Izuku threw a punch charged with 100% OFA with full power Fajin at Shigaraki as he charged at him. Shigaraki easily dodged the punch, with the wind pressure from the attack alone easily blowing all the clouds away in the entire city, revealing that it was around midday, making it sunny. Shigaraki grinned as he extended his hand towards Izuku's face, with Izuku instantly grabbing the wrist, but his face twisted to panic as he saw the palm glow blue. Izuku instantly let go and moved out of the way in a blur as Shigaraki released a jet of blue fire where Izuku was. Izuku. So he did get a hold of Dabi's quirk before Kachan killed him. Shigaraki grinned from the air as he stared at Izuku, who was getting ready to charge before Danger Sense went off again. This time Izuku wasn't able to move out of the way as he got hit in the side with an airblast, launching him into the side of a skyscraper, causing all the glass to shatter. Izuku looked up to the sky with a frown as he stood back up and yanked the glass shards out of his body. He glared at the two figures in the sky that looked down at him with mockery. One in a full black suit with a fancy helmet and the other looking like a homeless psychopath. AFO. I believe you have stalled my plans long enough, Izuku Midoriya. Now join your predecessors in hell. Shigaraki. Yours. Izuku. If that's the case, I'll take you two with me. You two would feel right at home. AFO. You can try, brat. Izuku charged up to 100% full Cal OFA, causing the skyscraper to shake from the power. He went into a running stance, letting his green lightning crackle out of him freely, causing it to shred the skyscraper apart, then disappeared into a green blur followed by a sonic boom, causing the skyscraper to collapse on itself from the shockwave. Izuku appeared in front of AFO with his fist behind him ready to punch that son of a peck. Izuku. Ow, what the fuck? Izuku looked around the rooftop he was on, looking for the culprit that woke him up. He stared at the sparrow that had pecked him with a glare as the said sparrow just tilted its head at him. Izuku sighed as he laid back down on the rooftop staring at the blue sky. He looked to the sun real quick and concluded that they should be arriving soon. Izuku sat up and walked to the edge of the building with the sparrow following and perching on his shoulders. He pulled out a pair of binoculars and sure enough a bus was pulling up in front of the USJ. Izuku frowned as he only saw Aizawa and 13. He gave it a minute to make sure he wasn't late, but still no All Might by the time they were walking in. Izuku crushed the binoculars as he pulled the hood up on his gray hoodie and put on his hospital mask. Izuku. Never learn. Izuku disappeared in a gray blur as he went to go save some kids. Izuku was on the top of the USJ peeking through the glass roof, seeing if he needed to interfere. He didn't know yet how bad his interference in the timeline was yet. There could be a small chance they don't even show up. However, his hopes were killed when he saw the purple portal slowly release villains, with the last two coming out being Kurogiri and Shigaraki. Izuku clenched his fist as he looked at the hand freak and had to stop himself from going down there to snap his neck. The incident played out how it went originally, with Shigaraki monologuing and Aizawa ready to jump down. But the change happened that Izuku was expecting. Kurogiri appeared in front of the class before Aizawa had jumped. Izuku cursed his luck as he broke through the glass and rocketed himself towards Kurogiri and dropkicked him through the front door. Izuku casually got up and dusted himself off as he glanced at the shocked looks of everyone. Izuku. 13, take your students out of here. It might be traumatic for them if they stay. Izuku walked towards the steps of the USJ, standing next to Aizawa, who stared at him with shock as Izuku glared down at the plaza full of villains with only one in his sights. Izuku. Eraserhead, go with your students. I can handle this, you will just get in my way, our quirks aren't compatible. Aizawa was going to argue but remembered the gray hoodie had the ability to create smokescreens that were extremely dense. Knowing it was the only logical option, Aizawa nodded in agreement and turned around, ordering his students to start leaving. Most obeyed with the exception of a few. Bakugo had to be restrained by Aizawa, who started to drag him out. He wanted to prove he was the strongest there. Todoroki, who seemed to want to do the same thing but was more reasonable as he turned around. Deku, who seemed anxious to leave Izuku by himself. Deku as present Izuku and Izuku as future Izuku. Not complicated at all, and Iida looked like he wanted to arrest Izuku himself. Izuku scoffed as he slowly released smoke from his body, not enough to make smokescreens but more as an intimidation factor. He'll give them a chance. He feels sympathy. No, he feels merciful. Shigaraki. A random encounter. No, a random mini-boss encounter. The gray hood of the pillars, nice to finally meet you. My master has shown great interest in your work, why don't you join us? What do you say, Izuku? You all have 5 seconds to lay on the floor and wait for your capture. If you don't, I will break you or kill you. Haven't decided yet, Shigaraki. Who does this guy think he is? Okay, you cannon fodder, go handle him while we wait for All Might. All the villains hesitated, not daring to move as they had heard the rumors about the pillars. Izuku. 5. Kurogiri appeared next to Shigaraki, causing the young man to look towards the shadowy Nomu. Kurogiri. Sorry Master Tamura, I wasn't able to separate any of the students. The pillar interfered before I could. Shigaraki. You're lucky you're our escape plan, Kurogiri, or I would have dusted your ass. Actually, Kurogiri, what's this Pilar's quirk? Kurogiri. From the informants in the underground and the survivors he did leave behind. His quirk seems to allow him to release smoke from his body. The limitations are unknown, but that is all he can do. Izuku. 4. Shigaraki. Good, so his quirk is weak. Kurogiri, bring all NPCs from the different zones and bring them here. Let's see how confident this mini-boss is after he's surrounded and outnumbered. Also bring the Nomu in case All Might shows up. Kurogiri. As you wish, Master Tamura. Izuku. 3. As Izuku stood there, counting portals started to form in the middle of the plaza, releasing even more villains. Making the villains that were conflicted become more confident with smug looks as they looked up at Izuku. Izuku just sighed and redirected his attention towards Shigaraki as he saw the Nomu emerged. Izuku. 2. Random villain 1. He's still counting. RV2. He does know he's outnumbered, right? RV3. Maybe his friends are nearby. RV4. Doubt it. They always work alone. RV1. He's bluffing. Let's take him. The villain then became surrounded in a blue glow as he charged at Izuku at fast speeds, showing off his speed quirk. The villains rushed in as well, but farther behind due to the speedster's speed. Izuku looked at the speedster with an unimpressed look as the speedster was about to punch him in the face. Izuku. So slow. 1. Izuku grabbed the villain's fist and brought it around him, twirling the villain around and wrapping the villain's left arm around his own neck. With the villain's back facing him, Izuku tugged the villain backwards, making him fall backwards towards Izuku. Izuku put his left hand on the villain's chest as he forced them onto his knee, making a very loud snap echo throughout the USJ. This made the other villains stop in their tracks as they watched Izuku snap the speedster's spine. Izuku dropped the body and stared at the villains with a disappointed glare. Izuku. You were warned. Don't be begging me for mercy. The villains didn't even get a chance to say anything in response, as an smokescreen erupted from Izuku, covering the whole plaza like a fog. It was silent until a loud crack was heard, followed by a thump. Then there was another crack, this time followed by a scream that went silent far too fast. That was all that filled the air of the USJ, the sounds of bones snapping, necks being broken, pleas of mercy that fell on deaf ears, the smell of iron in the air, and the sounds of people screaming in pain that quickly went silent. And all that noise was slowly making its way towards Shigaraki. Shigaraki took a small step back as he felt a cold sweat appear on his forehead, his body trembling a little. He had a lump in his throat and it was hard for him to breathe. Shigaraki. What is this feeling? Is this fear? I'm tired of not seeing. Nomu, clear out all this smoke. Nomu clapped its hands together, making wind pressure escape, blowing all the smoke away. Shigaraki wished he had never ordered the Nomu to do that, as a scene that will forever be scarred into his mind laid before him. Izuku was barely 10 feet away from Shigaraki while holding the last villain, who was squirming under Izuku's grasp around his collar and begged for mercy. Izuku didn't pay him any mind as he just kept his eyes on Shigaraki. Shigaraki looked down at the squirming villain's legs and felt queasy as he saw they were facing the wrong way. Izuku's hands were completely red, all the way up to half of his forearms dripping with blood. Izuku dropped the villain to the ground, who instantly tried to crawl towards Shigaraki, reaching his hand out for help. Then a blood-stained shoe came down on the villain's head, making a loud crunch and causing the hand to fall with a thump. Shigaraki gaped as he saw this supposed hero had so easily killed someone. Shigaraki then looked behind Izuku and he truly felt sick. Behind Izuku was a sea of broken bodies, with limbs facing wrong ways or in awkward angles, faces filled with terror and blood that stained the floor red. Shigaraki then looked at Izuku and just saw two green eyes glare into his soul with pure hatred. Izuku took a step toward Shigaraki, making him take a step back and almost slipping from the blood on the floor. Shigaraki. Nomu, kill him now. The Nomu instantly rocketed itself at Izuku, preparing a punch towards Izuku's face. To Kurogiri and Shigaraki, the Nomu had disappeared and reappeared in front of Izuku. To Izuku, the Nomu was slow as a snail. Izuku dodged to the right punch, easily avoiding the punch, and jumped back to avoid the corpses as he didn't want to die because of him slipping on blood. The Nomu charged at Izuku again, throwing another punch that Izuku easily dodged with a back pedal as the punch destroyed the ground. Thus began the game of cat and mouse. Shigaraki. He's keeping up. How? Nomu is supposed to be at All Might's speed. The fight continued for another minute until the doors of the USJ blew completely open. All Might stepped inside with a pissed look, followed shortly by the rest of UA staff and Class 1A since they felt safe with the staff. Everyone's faces filled with horror and queasiness as they looked upon the plaza that was full of bodies. They heard a boom and turned to see the gray pillar fighting what seemed to be a monster. All Might disappeared in a blur and shoulder-checked the Nomu into a building and gave the gray pillar an appreciation nod before launching himself after the Nomu. However, Izuku didn't met his gaze as he stared to the floor with sadness. Shigaraki, seeing Izuku distracted, rushed him with an extended hand ready to kill him. Izuku whirled around, catching Shigaraki by the wrist and countering with an overhead chop to his shoulder, shattering his collarbone instantly. Kurogiri quickly took Shigaraki and himself away before Izuku got a chance to finish him. Izuku turned his head and saw All Might launch the Nomu through the ceiling. Izuku. He finished faster this time. Good, that means he has more embers compared to last time. Izuku heard the stomps that surrounded him as he sighed in annoyance. Sure enough, a squadron of police, all the UA staff, Class 1A and All Might had surrounded him. Izuku didn't look at any of them, he didn't want to remember their faces. He knew he would just see those lifeless eyes stare at him in his mind. Izuku calmed himself down as he opened his eyes and stared at them. Izuku. This is going to be a pain to escape. Narrator Pav. Right where the last chapter ended. Izuku stood there in the middle of the USJ surrounded by squadrons of police, UA staff, Class 1A and All Might. This was going to be a pain to escape, thought Izuku as he glanced at their feet, too scared to look them in the eyes. Izuku took a calming breath as he activated Black Whip at the bottom of his foot, barely the size of a quarter. Nezu soon stepped forward towards Izuku, making him look down at Nezu, who stopped a few feet away from Izuku with a smile. Nezu. Good evening, Gray Pillar, or whatever you're called. I just wanted to thank you for saving my students from harm. Izuku. Don't thank me for something that could have been avoided. Why didn't you listen? The students and police looked confused at the pillar while the teachers had a somber look. Nezu sighed as he loosened his tie. Nezu. We couldn't take the risk of believing you. What if you were lying just to get all our teachers off of campus to attack UA? What if you just wanted to delay the future generation of heroes' progress? There were too many factors to consider. We took some precautions in case you were correct, but obviously they weren't enough. Izuku. I understand. Izuku raised his hands into a fighting stance, shocking everyone around him that he'll actually try to fight so many heroes and cops. Some of them were unnerved and a little scared as they saw blood was still dripping from Izuku's blood-stained hands. Nezu raised his hands, stopping everyone from this getting out of hand. Nezu. Before we start fighting each other like animals, I need to ask you something, young man. What is a hero to you? Izuku. Do you want the dictionary term or the true term? Nezu, sad face, intrigued, enlighten on both. Izuku. A hero now is just someone who gets paid to use their power how they see fit. The only difference between a hero and a vigilante is a small card. Tell me, who would rather be a hero, someone that wants to do it out of the kindness of their heart, or someone that is just looking for their next paycheck? Nezu and everyone else looked deep in thought, but they didn't get much time to think about it. Izuku. A true hero is someone that will be the light of hope for the people. Not just one symbol, but a whole alphabet that will shape our society for the better. Heroes with true goals, not out of power, greed or lust, but instead of peace, mercy and justice. That's the society that should emerge from the ashes of this corrupted one. Nezu. Let me ask you this. You say all that, yet you cause all this carnage and death. How can you truly call yourself a true hero if you commit so many atrocities? Izuku. When did I ever say I was a hero? I am the worst scum there is. I don't deserve to be a part of that type of society. However, I will lay my life down to make sure that society will emerge from this one. Nezu. I see. To me that sounds like a hero. You sound like you're barely a couple years older than these children around me, yet you speak as an veteran that has lost everything. So, that's why I want to make an offer to you, young man. Join UA as in third year and become the hero that you speak so highly of. Be the first light of this dark world, not as a comet that will come and go, but instead as a true light that will forever shine on our society. If you want, you could become a teaching assistant for this very class. What do you say, young man? Izuku stood completely still as his dull green eyes slowly widened at the offer. He closed his eyes and looked down as he remembered every single good time he had at UA. The fun times in the dorm with his class and their shenanigans. Kachan yelling when he splashed grease on himself while cooking, the Baku squad getting kidnapped by Aizawa for tutoring, their Christmas party, the cultural festival. Then Izuku remembered the fall and how each new special moment slowly dwindled before they barely started having any. Ochaco smiling at him with tears as he kneeled in front of her was the last thing that crossed his mind. Izuku clenched his fist in determination as he opened his eyes and stared at Nezu. Izuku. Not yet, the time is not right. It doesn't really matter in the grand schemes of normality and peace, but once conflict breaks out the true heart of a person appears. This is why I am here to weed society of these traitors, to stop this society from falling, to kill these scum that will take advantage of the ensuing chaos, to destroy the very symbol of evil in this time and to make sure true heroes prosper and are ready for the end. I haven't even started my trial yet, Nezu. This will be not the last time you see Shigaraki and his master nor me. Prepare yourself, Nezu. Before anyone could even react, Izuku erupted in smoke that covered the whole USJ. Aizawa was confused. He felt himself erase a quirk, so was he able to still use his own? Just like that the USJ ended. 1 week later, during the beginning of the 2-week break for the sports festival, Izuku decided the pillars should lay low for now. He decided to harass info brokers for more evidence he could use for a later purpose. To pass the day he would work longer hours at Mr. Uraraka's company. It was midday, probably halfway through the first week of the break. Izuku could be seen easily holding a steel beam in a place as 2 of his coworkers hammered the supports in. Izuku was wearing a black no-sleeve muscle shirt that showed off his scarred arms with a yellow hard hat, blue jeans and pair of brown boots. His hair was black with the help of dye. Izuku started to put more hours in after he decided to have a little break. Mr. Uraraka considered it unhealthy how many hours Izuku was putting in, but quickly shut up after he saw Izuku easily carry steel beams with one hand all day for 3 days straight. The job right now was making the foundation for a future skyscraper, probably the biggest job Mr. Uraraka has ever had. Due to how much Izuku works for Mr. Uraraka, they both became pretty great friends, except Izuku always declined to have dinner with Mr. Uraraka's family with great insistence. Izuku wiped his brow and started walking over to Mr. Uraraka, who was standing at a table full of plans. Izuku reached the table and took out a water from one of the nearby chests and stood next to Mr. Uraraka. After a little bit, Mr. Uraraka slapped Izuku on the back, making him turn towards his boss. Mr. Yu. Great job, Zuko. We are making excellent progress thanks to you. Izuku told him his name was Zuko Sawyer. Izuku. It's no problem, Mr. Yu, just doing my job. Mr. Yu. Exactly, which is why I want you to be my foreman from now on. Izuku. I don't. Mr. Yu. It's okay, you don't have to answer right away, just tell me if you accept or not later. Izuku. Okay. Izuku threw his water away and walked towards the pile of steel beams. As he picked one up with ease, he heard something that made his blood run cold and made him freeze. Hi, Daddy. Mr. Yu. Oh, my Mochi visited me. Dad, you're embarrassing me. Izuku glanced behind him and sure enough, there she was. His first true friend, his best friend, his lover, and one of the few people that kept him going. He fully turned around and saw Ochaco Uraraka in her younger days, wearing casual clothes and hugging her father with a large smile. Izuku turned to behind her. Once his heart started to hurt, he noticed the rest of the Class 1A girls were with her in casual clothes. It seemed Ochaco saw her dad's logo and decided to pay a visit in case he was there. Izuku was going to walk away, but he realized he didn't know where these new set of beams were supposed to go and he had to tell the workers to follow him. Izuku took a deep shaky breath and slowly walked towards the group. Mr. Yu. I'm just glad you're safe, Mochi. Of course you can go with your friends. Ochaco. Thanks, Daddy, I'll be home for dinner. Izuku. Mr. Yu, where do you need the next set of beams? Mr. Yu. Oh, Zuko. Take them to West Side. Before you go though, come meet my daughter and her friends, you guys are fairly close in age. Izuku had already turned around and silently cursed his luck as he slowly turned around with an impassive look. The girls were wondering what he looked like since they barely paid him any mind when he first arrived. however as soon as Izuku turned around massive blushes came across their faces. They stared at Izuku's Olympian-like body with embarrassment but couldn't help but keep staring as Izuku's face was also extremely cut and toned, making him very handsome. Instantly all the girls thought he looked exactly like Deku except just older, taller, muscular and with black hair, but the girls could still the resemblance making them blush more. One girl that noticed this right away was Ochaco, who was damn near atomic red after she made the connection. Confusion filled the girl's head as she didn't know why. That made her even more flustered imagining the man in front her as Deku. Izuku. Nice to meet you all. My name is Zuko Sawyer. Izuku bowed, avoiding eye contact with them as much as possible since his heart more with every second. The class returned the bow and each returned an introduction with evident shyness because Izuku tuned them out, as that was the only thing that helped him from breaking down. Mr. Yu. This young man is the main reason why we were able to get this job, Mochi. He's been helping me for almost a year already and yet he's still here. Pats Izuku on the back. Ochaco. Wait, that was you. Oh, I can't thank you enough for helping out my dad. Izuku. It's not a problem. Now I better get going. Mr. Yu. You know what, why not come for dinner tonight, Zuko? Izuku. I can't. Ochaco. Please accept Sawyer-san. It's the least we could do with all the help you've given us. Izuku didn't say anything as he turned around, not out of disrespect but because that was the only thing stopping him from hugging Ochaco. He stood there in silence for a little bit before slightly turning and gave a small nod. Ochaco and Mr. Yu cheered together, but Izuku already walked away with his hair shadowing his eyes as he carried the steel beam away. The girls said their goodbyes to Mr. Yu and went about their day. They couldn't help themselves and started gushing over the Zuko character, with them all pointing out how similar he looked to Deku. The girls all came to an agreement that they should help Deku train for reasons. Izuku, however, had arrived at the spot where the beam goes and slammed the beam in with great force. Izuku leaned against it and started to shake and silently cry. That night, Izuku leant against a lamppost across the street from the Uraraka household, looking at it with a sad look. Dinner is about to start and Izuku just can't get his legs to move towards the small apartment complex. He was wearing some blue jeans with a simple flannel and leather jacket, but Izuku just turned and walked away. As he was about to turn the corner, he bumped into someone, knocking them on the floor with a oof. Izuku. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going. Ochaco. Ow. Oh, Sawyer-san, nice to see you. It's my fault, I was running without paying attention. Izuku was frozen as he looked at Ochaco, who was on the floor rubbing the back of her head in embarrassment. He didn't know what to do but subconsciously held a hand out for her. When Ochaco's hand met his, he felt the tears well up but ignored them as he pulled her up. Ochaco, on the other hand, felt the scars on Izuku's hand and couldn't help but feel sad. Izuku quickly let go and started to walk away. That was until Ochaco grabbed him by the shoulder, making him weightless, and started to drag him towards her home. Ochaco. Daddy called me and told me you might do something like this. You aren't getting out of dinner with my family. Izuku didn't say anything as he tried his best to suppress the memories. 5 minutes later, Izuku found himself sitting at the side of the dining table, sitting next to Ochaco, and right across from him is her parents. The food was good, with it being simple sloppy joes. Izuku tried his hardest to repress the memories, but one couldn't help but leak out. It was during the aftermath of the second battle, and he slightly smiled as he remembered the dinner he had with Ochaco's parents. Unfortunately, that was the last time they ate together. Mrs. Yu. I can't thank you enough, Sawyer-san, for the help you've done for my husband. Izuku. It's no problem, Uraraka-san. It was my job to help him, and plus I understood he was struggling. I can't hold a grudge against someone that is in a similar position as me. Mrs. Yu. Oh, modest, humble, handsome and even kind. You picked a good one, Ochaco. Both Ochaco and her father choked on their food and started coughing, while Izuku's face remained in a fake smile as he continued to eat like he didn't hear her. Ochaco. What the hell, Mom? Mr. Yu. Yeah, what the hell? Mrs. Yu. What? He's a nice young man and I think Ochaco made an excellent choice. Ochaco. What are you talking about? We're not dating. I barely met him today. Mr. Yu. Yeah, what she said. Mrs. Yu. Oh, all the more reason to snatch him now while he's there. Ochaco groaned as she smacked her head on the table, hiding her face that was red in embarrassment. Izuku cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. Izuku. I'm sorry Mrs. Uraraka, I think you should listen to your daughter. She probably has someone she's interested in at school. While I'm just a random guy she just met today. I'm not saying your daughter isn't pretty or up to my standards, it's quite the opposite, she's very gorgeous and would most likely be a catch. However, I am not worthy of dating her. Izuku bowed to them, making them all shocked at the words. Ochaco smiled brightly at the words, but then the words he said, she probably has someone she's interested in at school. An image of Deku smiling at her popped in her head. Making her confused and embarrassed as she turned red, her mom noticed and smirked knowingly at her daughter. While Mr. Yu let out a massive sigh of relief, Izuku said his goodbyes as he walked back to his apartment with a soft, genuine smile. He reached his apartment and stripped down to just his boxer and took a seat at the edge of the bed facing the calendar. Izuku knew he was going about this like he was stepping on eggshells, so he decided screw that jazz and he was going to make a change. He doesn't care about the consequences anymore, she doesn't deserve to wait any longer. Izuku. I'm coming my angel. Narrator Pav. Izuku was standing on a roof in his green hoodie and black sweatpants. His hospital mask was on his chin, showing his 2 sets of identical freckles. In front of him was the Yakuza compound that was dimly lit by the moonlight that peeked through the clouds. It's been 3 days since Izuku has decided to save Eri, and now today was the day he will complete that mission. However, he needed to collect evidence beforehand so all the research will properly be handled. Well, the research he didn't destroy himself. Now it was time to put these sickos down like the sick dogs they are. Before Izuku jumped down, he put a hand to his hair and sighed as he had forgot to dye it black. Izuku thought to himself that it wouldn't matter too much since only one person is going to come out of there alive. Izuku jumped off the roof and safely landed on the street and started walking towards the Yakuza compound's door. As he neared the door, the 2 front guards started walking towards him, saying this was private property. That was until they saw the hoodie and mask and those toxic green eyes that stared into their souls. They weren't even able to make a call for help before 2 crunches cut their cries short, followed by the thump their bodies made as they fell to floor. Izuku flicked the door open, making it crush 2 more guards that weren't far from it. Izuku just casually walked in as he disappeared in a blur, killing 2 more guards that appeared with a simple flick to each man's chest. Shattering each man's chest completely open, Izuku slowly made his way through the compound, killing every single guard that came across his path or tried to hide. A giant of a man crashed through a wall trying to touch Izuku, but Izuku just backhanded him down the hall. The giant got back up with a very obvious broken jaw and took a syringe out and injected it into his neck, making him grow in size. Izuku. Trigger. That's going to be annoying. The giant charged at Izuku while taking a large inhale. Overhaul could be seen walking towards Eri's room with his 8 bullets and advisors. Well, except 1 bullet, for he was fighting the intruder. Overhaul was fuming in anger as he couldn't believe someone had the gall to attack his base. His subordinates could tell he was angry and were keeping a comfortable distance from Overhaul. Overhaul. Chronostasis. Who is attacking my base? Chrono. From the feeds that are still active, it seems it's one of those pillars. Overhaul. So, just a vigilante that doesn't know how to mind their business. Rikia should be able to handle him then. Overhaul opened the door and saw the experiment huddled in fear on its bed, backing away slowly. Overhaul. Shin grabbed the package. Truth. Yes, sir. Shin grabbed Eri by the hair as he dragged her off the bed and started dragging her out by the arm, making her scream in pain. The group soon started walking towards the escape route since they knew this place was most likely going to get raided soon by police due to all the racket. As they were about to reach the exit, the roof collapsed, followed by the giant, who was a bloody mess with limbs twisted everywhere and unmoving. A figure in a green hoodie soon came out of the hole in the roof and landed on the body of the giant, looking down on the Yakuza. Overhaul growled in annoyance at the figure while the bullets slightly backed up in fear at the figure. Eri also felt fear, but it was more for the figure than fear of it. Overhaul. Rappa, Diodoro and Tengai. Take care of this trash and make it painful. Rappa grinned as he started running at Izuku with the shield and drunk bullet following close behind. Izuku stayed still as he just looked at the 3 with an unimpressed look. He then looked at the frightened Eri and that gave him the push he needed to take care of this fast. Izuku. Trust me, it will be Chisaki. Immediately 3 loud bangs roared through halls followed by wind pressure that knocked everyone of their feet and spraying dust everywhere. Overhaul groaned and coughed as he sat up waving his arm to help dissipate the smoke. He opened his eyes and couldn't help but feel dread. Rappa was indented in a wall with his head twisted in very awkward angle with his jaw hanging loose and unmoving. Shield Guy was headfirst in the floor with his body twitching uncontrollable before finally going still. The drunkard was in the ceiling hanging from head before his body dropped to the floor with a thud. A scream sounded off behind Overhaul causing him to turn around and see Chrono fall to his knees with now 2 shattered arms. In little farther down the hall Overhaul saw Izuku set down Eri and lightly pet her head before turning around. Izuku started walking towards the remaining survivors ready to send them straight to hell. Truth. With fear, who are you? Izuku. Your death. Izuku disappeared again and instantly all the precepts got sent into the walls with sickening crunches, all their bodies looking like they went through a car crash. Now it was just Overhaul who backed up as Izuku reappeared a few feet in front of him and slowly started walking towards the leader. Overhaul's fear was instantly overridden by the rage he was fuming with. Overhaul. Eri, come back here right now or I'm going to kill this bastard. Overhaul shouted this as he yanked his gloves off causing Eri to yelp as she instinctively started to run towards Overhaul. Until a hand stopped her with a simple pat on the head forcing her to turn around. Her red eyes met green ones that looked at her with a feeling she was unfamiliar with. Izuku took off his mask and hood showing a young adult with green messy hair stare at her with a large smile. Izuku. Don't worry Eri. I'm going to make sure this man will never hurt you again. Overhaul. Eri, why you promise? Izuku's eyes glazed over a little with his smile slightly dropping before returning back to a smile like it never happened. Izuku. I promise Angel. Now please do me a favor Eri. Go around that corner and close your eyes and cover your ears. I don't want you to see or hear what I'm about to do. Don't worry, I'll come for you once I'm done with him. Eri nodded and reluctantly ran behind the wall listening to his orders. Overhaul growled in annoyance, already determining her punishment once he was done with this dumb kid. Overhaul reached for the floor with his left hand already confident in his victory until a hand grabbed him by the wrist stopping his hand inches from the ground. Overhaul panicked and lunged his right hand at Izuku's face causing it to also get caught with Izuku's right hand. Izuku slowly pulled Overhaul off his feet causing him to squirm in pain as he was lifted until he was face to face to Izuku. Izuku started squishing Overhaul's wrists making very audible cracks and pops as the bones slowly started breaking. Izuku. I know what you did to Eri and know what you want to do with her blood, Chisaki. Izuku slowly forced Overhaul on his knees as he continued to crush Overhaul's wrists. Izuku looked down on Overhaul with an emotionless face but his eyes only expressed anger. Overhaul's anger was now erased as he only felt fear. Izuku. In my opinion, someone that hates quirks so much wouldn't want one. Right? Izuku asked as he slowly started to pull Overhaul's arms while putting his foot down him so he didn't move. Overhaul started to panic as he felt his arms crack under the pressure. Overhaul. Wait, we can talk about this. Please. I need it. I can't fix the boss if you do this. Izuku didn't say anything as he continued to pull with an emotionless look as he ignored the screams of pain, popping of joints and socket and the tearing of muscles. A long shredding echoed throughout the halls followed by screams of agony. Izuku dropped 2 arms as Overhaul continued to scream in pain and tried to crawl away from Izuku but got stopped as Izuku put a foot on his knee stopping him. Overhaul. Stop. Please just take me to prison. I swear I won't ever harm her again. Izuku. Prison is too good for you. Izuku raised his fist causing Overhaul's eyes to widen. Overhaul. Wait, no, Dawn. Crunch. Izuku brought his fist down on Overhaul's head making a sickening crunch echo throughout the halls as Overhaul's body fell limp. Izuku picked up his bloody fist causing the blood to flow out of the mess of Overhaul's head bloodening the floor red seeping through the cracks that Izuku's punch caused. Izuku spit on the body before turning around to pick up Eri. Eri was crouched against the corner of the wall with her eyes closed and hands covering her ears. She was scared for the man that came to help her as he was facing a demon that had always killed any hope. So the self-doubt crept in her mind, calling her stupid for disobeying the demon, and it will just be harsher punishments. Eri started crying as she knew the voice was most likely right. A hand came upon her head, making her terrified as she thought it was the demon, causing her to keep her eyes tight as she awaited the pain. However, instead the hand slowly started caressing her head with small pats, causing the girl to subconsciously lean into the warmth of the hand. Eri opened her teary eyes and saw the young man kneeling in front of her, giving her a small smile. He stood up and offered his non-bloody hand to her. "Izuku. Let's get out of here, Angel." Eri started crying with happy tears as she latched herself onto Izuku with her arms around his neck and her legs around his abdomen as she continued to cry in happy tears. Izuku froze at the action with large eyes as he started to shake and breathed a little harder. A memory played in his head that reminded him of now. Mini flashback. Izuku was getting ready to head out to check a facility that Aoyama told him about. As he was getting ready to leave, Eri latched onto his leg with tears as Inko ran after her. Inko was also crying since she always hated seeing her son go off to the battlefield with no guarantee of his return. He was far too young to have this much responsibility. "Eri. Daddy, please don't go. You were so hurt last time and Uncle Kachan didn't come. Please Daddy stay, I can't lose you too." Izuku knelt down and brought the girl into a hug as he tried to hold his tears back. Leadership had been hard on him since he lost his right-hand man, but they will persevere. "Izuku. It's okay to be scared, Eri. I'm just going to check a spot real quick, it should only take a few minutes." "Eri. Promise." "Izuku. I promise, Angel. Now please go with your grandma into the safe house." "Eri. Okay." Eri quickly went back with Inko as they both started walking towards the underground safe house. Waving to Izuku one last time before going underneath into the safe house. Izuku smiled as he took off towards the location, hoping it won't take too long. Another memory appeared of Izuku kneeling in the dirt in front of an inferno, crying uncontrollably. End of flashback. Tears started escaping Izuku's eyes as he wrapped Eri into a tight embrace, making Eri feel warm and safe. The two stayed in that embrace, both silently crying for very two different reasons. "Izuku. I'm sorry I couldn't keep my promise, Angel. This time though you won't go through that pain ever again. You will live a happy long life, this I will guarantee, my angel." Izuku could be seen walking with Eri still latched onto him like a cub. Izuku stopped in front of a room and put Eri down gently, making her very scared as she recognized the room. Izuku pat her on the head and gave her a smile that said everything will be alright. "Izuku. Watch this." Izuku walked into the room with a clear look of disgust as he looked at all the bloody medical equipment. He quickly started destroying the room, whether it be equipment, paperwork or chemicals. Destroying any evidence and research of Eri's blood and quirk. Except he took one completed vial of Eri's blood secretly as a backup plan. Izuku then picked up a bottle of alcohol and started pouring it all over the room before starting a fire. In a flash Izuku disappeared and reappeared, throwing Overhaul's body into the fire too fast for Eri to see. "Izuku. Don't need AFO getting his hands on his quirk." Eri looked at Izuku in wonder as he picked her back up and started walking away from the burning room. Izuku smiled down at her as they kept walking away. Eri looked back at the burning room with wide eyes. "Eri. He destroyed the place of pain." Izuku flicked upwards, caving away to the surface as he and Eri slowly started fly out with her looking in awe at the view. As he was flying away he saw the police arrive at the compound entrance and start to make their way in. After a couple minutes Izuku landed on his balcony and slowly opened the window and hopping into his apartment. He put the sleeping Eri on his bed as he went to the restroom to clean himself up and go to bed himself. Hopefully, the nightmares won't be too bad. Narrator Pav. Izuku was digging through rubble with a panicked look as his hands were raw from all the digging. His costume was even more of a mess with no hint of green anywhere to be seen. He had just came back from his final fight and was greeted with the sight of UA burning and everyone dead. We'll come back to that in a later chapter. Izuku was desperate as he continued to throw one big rock after another to the side. He couldn't lose them too, he didn't want to be alone. However, that hope died as he saw a small charred hand poke out from under a slab. "Izuku. Number. Oh God, please no." Izuku tossed the slab aside to reveal a charred corpse of a child, but Izuku saw the horn on the head of the corpse. He started shaking with wide eyes as his fears were confirmed. Tears fell from his face as he brought the corpse into a hug. He screamed into the sky as it heard his call and released its own tears. Izuku. No. Izuku. No. Izuku sat up from his bed screaming, causing a little guest to wake up as well but stay quiet. Izuku took deep breaths with pants in between as sweat dripped from his body. He put his head into his hands as he tried to push the memory away and calm himself down. A small hand touched his knee, causing him to back up and whirl his head towards it, causing Eri to squeak as she backed up from Izuku. Instantly Izuku calmed down to small breaths as he realized he had scared Eri. He offered his hand to Eri, palm up, which she slowly accepted. He pulled her into a gentle hug which she sunk into and fell back asleep. Izuku tightened the hug as he forced his tears to remain back. Izuku. I will not fail this time. Izuku saw that it was barely 3 a.m. but he decided he had enough sleep for one day. So, he just kept Eri close and just rocked back and forth to help her sleep. Izuku was flipping a pancake with one hand as Eri was standing next to him holding his hand. Since that day Eri and Izuku always had some form of physical contact with each other. Whether it be hand-holding, hugs, sitting on his lap or sleeping together. Izuku told himself it was to help with her loneliness, but deep down he knew they both needed this. They sat in silence as they ate pancakes with Eri sitting on Izuku's lap. As he was cleaning the dishes, Eri came up to him and held his pant legs as she watched him clean. After he finished he had an idea and grabbed an apple and handed it to Eri. Eri looked at it confused until she took a bite with stars forming in her eyes. Izuku laughed a genuine laugh for the first time in a long time as he watched Eri devour the poor apple. Izuku was giving Eri a bath, washing her hair with a small smile as Eri looked forward with a dumb look. Izuku laughed as Eri tried to eat the bubbles of the soap, causing her to gag in disgust. Izuku took Eri shopping for clothes as she only had one outfit since it was hard to buy little girl clothes if you didn't have a girl with you. So, he was only able to get one in advance before he saved her. Now he had her and was able to get clothes she liked while avoiding any heroes as he knew they probably knew about Eri by now. As the duo were leaving, Izuku saw a poster that made him smile in nostalgia and knew what he was going to do next. 2 weeks later, Izuku and Eri were hand in hand as they walked with a crowd into a ginormous stadium. Izuku, now with his black hair, was wearing a green leather jacket and a white button-down with blue jeans and his forever red shoes. Eri was wearing a white hoodie with the hood covering her hair and face. She had a white skirt on with black leggings and red shoes. They were heading towards their seats with Eri munching on a candy apple. Izuku had asked for time off for a while and luckily Mr. Yu let him, so he bought tickets to the UA Sports Festival for the 3rd, 2nd and 1st year events. Their seats were pretty average, somewhere in the middle of the 2nd level. The first year to start the show was the 3rd years since they would be out in the streets soon anyways, so this is more like an introduction to future heroes. While the 2nd and 1st years are showcases for future heroes. It wouldn't take as long since they only do the hero courses for the 3rd year, since the bring up method doesn't matter anymore. It was fairly simple battle tournament with the big 3 easily sweeping their classmates. Eri thought it was interesting that all these people fighting were going to be heroes like her savior. She wasn't completely convinced about it since Papa was the only one that ever came for her. Izuku had been teaching her the basics of school and to his surprise she was a genius. It seems like there were some positive changes in this timeline. She quickly figured out that the heroes knew about her captures and yet did nothing out of the excuse they didn't have enough evidence. Yet they still knew about the crimes they committed, it just wasn't convenient enough, so right now Eri developed a small grudge against heroes, causing Izuku sadness. The only hero in her eyes was Izuku and no one else. Eri, the curious type, also developed Izuku's analytical mind and unfortunately his mumbling as well. However, she truly was a genius, barely 6 years old and was easily at middle school level. Izuku couldn't be prouder. Mirio and some guy from Mirio's class made their way to the stage for their bout. It was the finals to decide who would fight for first. Izuku. The one with a cartoon face. Eri. His quirk makes it look like teleportation due to his unnatural speed and lack of clothing when he appears somewhere. However, his quirk actually seems to be phasing, where he could slip through objects and attacks. It seems strong, but you can tell it took a lot of practice and has its serious drawbacks. evident by the deep breaths he takes before he slips through the ground. A strong combat quirk if trained properly, but not much use anywhere else. The crowd around the girl stared at her in shock, as they could tell she couldn't be any older than 6. Izuku, however, stared at her with a proud smile as he rubbed her head, causing her to lean into the hand. Izuku. Correct again. Great job, Eri. Eri looked down in embarrassment from the compliments as the crowd around her gushed from the cuteness. The crowd wrote off her analyzing as the girl's quirk and went back to watching the one-sided fight. The third-year tournament ended with Mirio coming out on top with Nejire in second and Amakiji in third. There was a 30-minute recess until the first-year tournament, with Eri and Izuku just waiting in their seats. With Eri gushing over the final fight between Mirio and Nejire since their quirks were pretty cool. Soon the first-year festival started, with Present Mike calling the classes up. Eri watched them with disinterest, since she concluded that since they were younger they wouldn't have that powerful of quirks compared to the third and second years. However, her eyebrows quirked up in curiosity as she looked down on a green-haired boy that looked awfully familiar to her father. Eri turned towards Izuku with a questioning look that he returned with a look that said he'll explain later. The festival started the same, with an obstacle race, with it starting the exact same way of Shoto freezing the entrance. With Class 1A and B easily escaping, but Izuku instantly saw the first change in their class. His younger self was using OFA without issue to outpace the others. However, Izuku saw how he was able to use it. Izuku. He's probably around 15% already, but he hasn't figured out full cowling yet. He just had OFA activated in his legs. Very interesting. If he had full cowling he would easily be at 25%. The obstacle race ended the same, with Deku winning it. However, Izuku was happy since Eri was actually cheering for his younger self and had an awkward smile on her face. However, she could tell she was getting frustrated from Deku not using his full power, and the same with Shoto not using his either. As the cavalry battle ended, Eri was seething with frustration. Eri. Why aren't they using their full power? Izuku. Well, first off, they're both too stupid. Besides that, the green one would be a broken mess if he tried, and the split one is throwing a teen tantrum. Eri. I understand for the green one, but that doesn't excuse him from not spreading it out throughout his body. Izuku. What to tell him that? Eri. Yes, Izuku. Okay, let's go. Izuku and Eri were sneaking through the tunnels for the contestants. Deku's fight with Shinsho had just ended, and Izuku was guiding Eri towards the nurse's office. Right when they entered the tunnel, Deku exited the nurse's office. Izuku took a deep breath as he saw his younger self mumble to himself as he made his way back to the student section. Izuku. Pretty nasty break you got there. Deku. Huh, who are you? Izuku. Just a spectator that took his daughter to watch some serious talent. Deku. Oh, I apologize, I'm just a little on edge lately. Izuku. It's fine. Pretty neat quirk you got there. A enhancement quirk. Deku. Why yeah, I have to limit myself, or like you've seen I break my bones or harm my body. Izuku. I see, I assume you have to work out a lot to increase the amount of power you can use. Deku. Yes sir. Izuku. Anyways, my daughter here just wanted to tell you something. Eri stepped up, making Deku smile as he crouched until they were face to face. Eri then kicked Deku in the leg, making squirm in pain, and made Izuku laugh. Eri. It was so frustrating watching you struggle with all that power. Why don't you spread your power throughout your entire body? Deku was rubbing his leg and was about to retort until his eyes widened. Izuku smiled as his younger self started to power up until he was covered in the usual green lightning, causing Eri to cheer. Izuku. How does it feel? Deku. Amazing. Liberating. I don't know how to describe it. Izuku. What percentage are you at? Deku. I think 22%, but I feel like I could go higher, but I don't want to risk it. Eri. What are you going to call it? Deku. Full cowling. Eri. Kind of lame, don't ya think? Izuku and Deku both gasped in shock at the insult and quickly defended it. The duo said their goodbyes to the teen as they returned to their seats and watched the rest of the tournament. To their surprise, Deku won the whole thing with his new full cowling, easily outpacing both Shoto and Bakugo. The second-year festival wasn't as good as the first year's, but still put on a good show. Plus Izuku got what he came for, the smile of an angel. The duo went home smiling together as Eri recounted what she saw while on Izuku's shoulders. It's a shame this will be the last time they will be this happy together for a while. The next day the two were walking to Ua with sad looks with Izuku back in his green hoodie and hospital mask. Eri is in her canon outfit and was holding Izuku's hand as they walked to Ua in the early hours of the morning. Last night Izuku had told her everything from his purpose here and where he is from. And also that he was going to take her to Ua tomorrow since he would be too busy to take care of her. She was greatly saddened but understood that night they just hugged one last time, letting everything out. As they approached the gate of Ua, its wall came down in front of him and Eri. But he just flicked it, sending the wall flying and causing sirens to blare to live. Eri and Izuku continued to walk in as they headed towards the main building. They stopped right in front of the building and were instantly surrounded by the entire UA staff and the third years in their costumes and uniforms. No one made a move since they saw a kid was with Izuku. Noi walked to the front with Aizawa next to him with his quirk activated and trained right on Izuku. Nezu clapped his hands together as he stopped a few feet away from Izuku. Nezu, may I ask why the Pillar of Fear is on my campus? Izuku, I thought they called me Justice. Nezu, not after the Yakuza. Izuku, understandable. Izuku gestured for Eri to walk out from behind him since she hid behind him as soon as the heroes appeared. She reluctant did, making the heroes' eyes widened as they realized the situation has grown to something more unpredictable. Aizawa, is that the girl Night Eye was talking about? Izuku, yes. Her name is Eri, a 6-year-old girl who was been tortured and experimented on since the day her quirk manifested. They were using her blood to make a way to completely erase quirks and would have succeeded if I didn't put it down. Now I can't take care of her anymore and I need you to do it for me. Izuku gave Eri a nod and she returned it with tears as she hugged his leg tight, resulting in Izuku patting her on the head. She reluctantly let go and started walking towards the heroes before stopping by Aizawa's side. Aizawa offered his hand towards her but she didn't even spare him a glance as she had her eyes on her surrogate father. Nezu, you know we can't let you leave. Izuku, I would hope that you would still try, after all you are heroes. Nezu, the people looked up to your group and you repay that rust with a massacre. You lot truly are despicable. I believe none of you have the heart of a hero. Izuku, reputation never mattered to me. It has to be done no matter how vile and villainous it seems. These actions are to ensure your society's future. So stay out of my way because I have barely started. Nezu, sorry, I can't let a murderer out on the streets while my students are out there. Izuku, I understand. All Might landed in front of Izuku, causing wind to blow everywhere, pulling Izuku's hoodie down, but he didn't care anymore. All Might threw a punch at the young man but Izuku easily caught the punch with green electricity bouncing off him. Just like Izuku. Good, you still have your flame. Izuku released a smokescreen from his body, erupting the area in smoke. Izuku went through the smoke and gave Eri a hug that she gave back. Then Izuku was gone. The smoke disappeared, revealing that Izuku escaped, which caused everyone to curse their luck except Eri, who had a smile. Eri, you fakes will never defeat Papa. Narrator Pav. Boom. Izuku launched out of a building as it collapsed on itself before exploding into an inferno. Izuku looked down on the building with a glare in his green hoodie, then took off in another direction at high speeds. It was the dead of night and for the past 2 weeks Izuku has been destroying anything that AFO owned or had control over. Whether it be Nomu labs and factories, hideouts, businesses and hospitals. He has also taken care of any person that was under his control or on his payroll, mostly politicians, heroes, police and businessmen. So far Izuku has destroyed 40 Nomu labs, factories, 20 hideouts, 30 businesses, 5 hospitals, has killed 40 politicians, 200 cops, 50 heroes and 12 businessmen. Right now Izuku was heading towards the last location that wasn't the Camino ward and the bar. Izuku landed in front of a hospital and started to make his way inside. When the staff saw him enter, they instantly started to flee since they recognized him. Izuku made no effort to stop him as he walked towards the center of the hospital before slamming fist on the ground, making the floor collapse, revealing a cavern, which Izuku hopped down into. Izuku saw a lab full of Nomu tubs with a small old man furiously typing into his computer in a panic. He was trying to send everything away since he didn't want his research to be gone. Then the computer exploded from an air blast sent by Izuku with a flick of a finger, sending the old man to the floor. He turned to Izuku with fear as he tried to crawl away from Izuku, who was calmly walking towards him. "Doctor. Please. You don't know who you're messing with. He'll destroy everything you love for all the trouble you caused." Izuku. "Oh, I know he could, but I'm not worried about that walking corpse. I'm worried about what he's grooming. So, I might as well make it harder for it to become stronger. Oh, and I guess kill it as well." Izuku raised his fist about to kill the doctor when his danger sense yelled at him to dodge, forcing him to backflip back as a blur appeared in front of the doctor. Izuku looked up and sighed as he looked at the hooded Nomu. Izuku. "Hood. Doctor. Oh, thank God. Hood, kill that bastard." Hood growled as it tried to form words with Izuku just raising his eyebrow. "Hood. Are you the strongest?" Izuku. "Yes, doctor. Kill him." Hood disappeared as he charged Izuku, but as the punch was about to land at Izuku's head, Izuku disappeared and Squelch went off behind Hood, causing him to turn around and see Izuku's fist right where the doctor's face used to be. Izuku took his fist out of the corpse of the doctor as he turned towards Hood. Hood charged at Izuku again, but Izuku extended his palm with a little force, causing Hood to turn into a red mist. Izuku. MMH. Guess he wasn't done yet. Izuku turned around and started exploring the facility, destroying everything in his path, whether it be Nomus, research, labs, and even experiments. As he was destroying, Nine stepped out of one of the rooms with a loud cough, asking what was happening, but he barely got the words out before his head exploded from an air flick from Izuku's finger. Izuku launched himself out of the hospital as it collapsed on itself before exploding into an inferno like the last building. Izuku landed on a nearby roof and inspected his body at all angles before giving himself a satisfied nod. Izuku. Good, I can do more. Izuku flew off as he was satisfied with his progress for now. Tomorrow his past self should be arriving back at Ua, taking care of Stain-ju like before but with less injuries. In a way he did help a few of his classmates in dealing with crimes. It's a shame it had to be his crimes. In the UA conference room, the UA staff could be seen in a video conference with the Hero Association, the Prime Minister, the top heroes, and multiple rising stars in the hero industry. All had tense faces due to the seriousness of the meeting. Eri was in the corner of the room drawing, pretending she wasn't paying attention due to boredom, but in reality she was listening very intently. She has been hiding her intelligence from the staff since she wanted more freedom as a child, then as an prodigy. Also, she didn't feel like getting kidnapped by the Hero Association. Prime Minister. I assume you all know what this is about. Every individual nodded as the Prime Minister pressed a button, making an image of Izuku in each of his hoodies appear in a different situation. Red hoodie snapping a villain's neck, yellow hoodie fighting a crystal man, black hoodie choking a villain with black whip, gray hoodie at the USJ, and the green hoodie fighting a Nomu. The temperature in each room went cold as the green hoodie appeared in his picture. Prime Minister. The Green Pillar has gone on a rampage, causing untold carnage and destruction on Japan. Nezu. Is there any evidence of why he's doing this? Prime Minister. No, he hasn't said anything, nor has anyone gotten a chance to even get a word out of him. Endeavor. Description and quirk. All Might. Black messy hair, green eyes, male, in his late teens or young adult, a extremely strong enhancement quirk. Aizawa. What about the other pillars? Hawks. None have been spotted since the rampage has begun, just the green one. So they are either have been killed by the green pillar or they quit. Hero President. I am here to give you permission to use lethal force against this villain. You are allowed to kill him since he is far too dangerous. He is a danger to our very society. The Hero Association left, causing the Prime Minister to sigh since that president kept forgetting he wasn't in charge of Japan. However, he had nothing to add, so he signed off as well, leaving the pros to themselves. Silence filled the conference as they truly didn't know if they could defeat this monster. How could they defeat someone that could stop the strongest hero's attack with minimal effort? The meeting ended not long after, with heroes not adding much after the two leaders left. Because truly didn't even know where to start in finding this guy. Though some special individuals would have a meeting later tonight. Several hours later, everyone that knew about OFA except Night Eye, Deku and Recovery Girl were seen in the conference room once again to discuss more about the vigilante. This time Aizawa had joined them since he was getting suspicious of All Might of favoritism, so they decided to just let him in on the secret. Nezu. Any clues on how they know about OFA yet? Aizawa. Number. When I asked Eri, she refused to answer me or just straight up ignored me. Detective. So, still no leads on that then. Aizawa. Number. Gran Torino. Is he connected to him? All Might. Number. I don't think he is, but he defiantly knows about him or has met him. Nezu. I did notice though the green pillar looks exactly like young Midoriya. Same hairstyle and same green eyes. Just one is older and defiantly stronger. All Might. I already checked with Mrs. Midoriya and young Midoriya has no siblings, uncles or cousins. And his father is dead, but I was told he had white hair instead of black. Aizawa. I thought Problem Child said his dad works in America. All Might. That's what his mom told him since his dad died when he was pretty young and didn't want to break his heart. Nezu. Still that green lightning. All Might. Yes, it was exactly like young Midoriya's full cowling. Nezu. Quite a mystery. Izuku landed on a rooftop as the sun started to rise over the horizon. Izuku sighed as he watched the city glow with the rising sun. Izuku sighed as he felt danger sense tell him to dodge, causing him to fall off the roof as an kick barely missed his head, causing a bunny woman to growl in annoyance, as Izuku was free falling with closed eyes. He felt danger sense go off again, causing him to twist his body mid-air, letting a sniper bullet barely miss him. Izuku opened his eyes and saw the sniper's glint in the distance as another bullet got fired, causing Izuku to swat it away as he continued to fall. Izuku. Deja vu. Several red feathers penetrated Izuku's clothes, launching him into the roof of another building as he got pinned by the red feathers. However, a bored expression was still on his face as Hawks and Mirko landed on the roof with confident smirks. Hawks walked up to Izuku while pulling out handcuffs with his usual smirk. Hawks. Zuko Sawyer, you are under arrest for multiple counts of murder, vigilantism, anarchy, arson and many more crimes. Mirko. Was that really all? The president and prime minister made it seem like this guy was a walking disaster. He barely put up a fight, kinda lame, don't you think? Lady Nagant. Over radio, just cuff him before he tries anything. He already dodged 2 of my shots, so he isn't a pushover. Mirko. Whatever you say. Izuku. Hawks. Hawks stopped a few feet away from Izuku with a confused look as Izuku just continued to stare at the sky. Mirko always raised her eyebrow and started sweating as her animal instincts were screaming at her to run. Hawk's animal instincts were also telling him to run, but instead he froze as waves of killer intent erupted from the downed Izuku. In a blink of the eye, Izuku was right in front of Hawks with green eyes staring right into Hawk's soul, causing him to cower. Izuku. I'll be coming for your boss next. Hawks didn't even get enough time to process before Izuku hit him with an open palm into the chest, launching him into the roof's entrance with a thud, making Hawks a wheezing mess as the air forced out of his lungs. Mirko went for a kick at Izuku's head but only hit air as everything went dark. Izuku had went behind her and knocked her out with a hard chop to the neck. Izuku dodged another sniper bullet with a tilt of his head and glared in Lady Nagant's direction. Nagant was about to fire again, but Izuku disappeared in a blur, causing her to panic even though that was against her personality. Her eyes widened in fear as she felt killing intent grow right behind her as she felt a pressure right behind her head. Izuku. Like I told Hawks. Next is your boss. Nagant didn't even get a chance to respond before everything went dark. Izuku looked down on the unconscious Lady Nagant before he turned around and flew away. It was night once again and Izuku laid down on a fire escape of an abandoned building as he closed his eyes to fall asleep. Izuku's eyes opened again to what was a void, causing Izuku to groan in annoyance as he stood up. He turned around to see all previous users looking at him with disappointment. First. We need to talk. 9th. Narrator Pav. Izuku stared at the 8 ghosts with an unamused look as they looked down on him from their thrones. It turned into a frown as he scanned the other users and saw they all had disappointed looks. Izuku and the previous users haven't had a good relationship in a long time. They stopped talking to Izuku once the second battle ended in failure. Because of that, Izuku views them lesser since they just abandoned him when he needed guidance. He thought it would change when All Might died, but they remained silent. First, we need to talk. Ninth. Izuku. There's nothing to talk about first. So let me out. Nana Shimura, the 8th user, stood up from her throne with a scowl directed at Izuku, who just stared at her with a blank look. The other users sighed as they wanted to avoid this. Nana. You were taking it too far, kid. You were just causing chaos with all of your destruction. I thought you said you would never take a life. Izuku grew angry at the accusation as he believed they had no right to judge him. To him they were just a bunch of cowards. Izuku. Growl, don't you dare judge me. You would know why I'm like this if you didn't abandon me. But that seems to be your go-to when things get rough. Nana gasped at the remark while the others' eyes just widened, not expecting it. It's true, after the second battle when they tried to separate the two titans, after the failure the users cut all communications with Izuku, not even knowing what's been happening until one of them decided to see what he was up to. They came across Izuku snapping a politician's neck, thus they decided to intervene. Nana. You son of a. The 5th user Banjo wrapped Black Whip around Nana, preventing her from trying to hurt Izuku. Izuku, however, just scoffed at the attempt and crossed his arms. Izuku. So, now you have a problem with killing, even though it was your idea to kill your own grandson and all of you have all tried to kill AFO. What's so different now? 6th. N. You've changed. 9th. That's what is different. What happened to you? Izuku. You would know if you didn't disappear for 3 years. The users looked away in guilt as they knew Izuku was right. Izuku knew he was also right as he looked around the void, still very much annoyed. The reason why the users ghosted Izuku for 3 long years is simple: they felt guilty for the failure of the second battle. So, they decided to punish themselves in isolation. What they didn't account for is how that would make Izuku feel. Once they decided their punishment was over, they came across a very different Izuku Midoriya. First, that we can't deny was a bad idea, but that doesn't excuse your actions. Izuku. It wasn't an excuse. I stopped caring about what you guys thought the moment the 1-year mark came around for your abandonment. This needs to happen, so stay out of my way. All Might's vestige looked at Izuku with a sad look as he could barely recognize the boy he met all those years ago. Izuku ignored All Might's vestige since he honestly didn't want to admit he felt nothing for the man anymore, not since his death. Izuku truly was numb. All Might. What happened to the boy to save everyone? With a smile. Izuku. That boy saw everyone he saved died in front of his eyes. He realized a smile could only get you so far and would never be enough. What a person truly needs is results, no matter how you get those results. Nana. What happened to the hero that saw the good in everyone? Izuku. That hero stopped finding the good and just saw the worst of the worst. Even from the supposed good side. First, what happened to the boy that wanted to be the #1 hero? The hero that would change the world for the better. Izuku. He did reach it in a way. It's a shame the world changed into a piece of shit. There was no one to play hero for, no one to show off that fake smile to, no one to save, no one to love. The hero was alone. The users fell silent as Izuku glared at them, causing the living and dead to stare at each other. The tension was so high you could see the void slowly restrict itself as the two sides stared at each other. The first broke the silence since he was worried what might happen to OFA due to all the pressure. First, why did you accept that God's offer? Why didn't you try to consult us? Second, who knows what that God is planning? Izuku. Just like the OFA offer. This shut up the two instantly as they looked at Izuku, who still had his arms crossed with a frown. Izuku. Like I said before, there is nothing to talk about. This is none of your concern anymore. I completed OFA's goal, so go to the afterlife or something. Just leave me alone. All Might. We just want what's best for you and society. Izuku. Bullshit. You guys believe you did good for society, but you just made it worse. 7 of you don't even exist in the history books, while the 8th made society so weak that it let that bastard destroy everything with barely any effort. And don't dare say you did anything for me. All of you guys did was just die and pass the mess to someone else to clean it up. I don't get that luxury. Instead I lived and was left with nothing. Izuku was taking deep breaths as he tried to calm himself down. The users just looked away, causing Izuku to get even madder. Thus he turned his back to them and just started walking towards the void. He ignored the pleas of the vestiges as he forced himself out of the mindscape. Izuku opened his eyes and saw the morning sun stare down on him, causing him to groan. Next on his agenda was to handle some foreign radicals, but he needed to wait for his past self and crew to head to I Island. Plus he hopes he never has to see those damn ghosts again. Narrator Pav. Izuku was getting ready to leave Ua when Ochaco walked up to him, wrapping him into a hug that caused him to smile softly as he returned it. Izuku was about to head out and check a location that Aoyama said might hold AFO and Shigaraki. Izuku could finally end it here and now, thus he was getting ready to leave to finish this chaos. They have lost too much and he wasn't going to lose any more. He had already said goodbye to Eri and Inko already, so Ochaco would be his last. Ochaco. Good luck, babe. We'll hold the fort while you're gone. End this madness for us, for everyone. Izuku. I will. Ochaco. I got something to tell you once you come back with that win. But first let's get married once all this mess is cleaned up. Izuku. I wouldn't have it any other way. Izuku gave her one last peck before flying off towards the location with Ochaco waving him off. Lightning lit the dark sky, illuminating Izuku's face that was just terrified shock as he collapsed to his knees in front of Ochaco, who was in a pool of blood with a knife in her chest. Izuku brought Ochaco to his chest as tears filled his eyes as he looked up and saw all the bodies of the remaining survivors. The remaining buildings were up in flames and Izuku saw some of the heroes helping the villains loot and do other actions. Izuku felt something inside him snap as he slowly stood up while gently laying Ochaco's body down. One of the villains noticed him, alerting the rest as they slowly surrounded Izuku, whose eyes were shadowed by his hair. A young adult with messy blonde hair skipped towards Izuku from the crowd before stopping a few feet away from him with a crazed smile as she was completely covered in blood. Toga. Izuku, you won. I also see that you found Ochaco and saw the love I gave her. Oh. Her last words were your name. How romantic. Even in death she still thought about you. Her blood was delicious too, but had a weird taste, though I have had it before so I was able to recognize it. Did you know there was a little Izuku growing inside her? Izuku's eyes widened as he finally snapped, killing Toga with a flick of a finger that burst her head apart. Izuku doesn't remember much after that, just flashes of people running from him in fear, begging for mercy that never came, the sounds of bones breaking and blood splashing. Once he came to, he was covered in blood that wasn't his own, and then he buried all of his close ones and the innocent. Izuku opened his eyes and was greeted by the blue ocean as he continued to fly towards the remote location of Sumarise. He always hated that nightmare because it reminded him of his failure and the sick joke the world played on him. He won, he beat the two people that destroyed his world, and yet he had no one to celebrate with. He won for no reason. He missed them all so much, but he needed to finish this mission first, then he would rest. Izuku saw the fortress below and quickly dived into the entrance on the side of the mountain, causing it the whole mountain to shake from the landing as well. Izuku quickly tore through the ranks of powerless henchmen, bloodending the halls as he made his way to the throne room. Two crazy twins tried to stop him, but they didn't last long as they were soon without heads. A monstrosity got in his way, but a simple flick made its entire torso turn into red mist. The archer tried to stop him, but he just snapped her neck. Izuku kicked the door of the throne room down as he walked in and saw Fleck reading his doomsday book. He turned to Izuku with a glare that quickly disappeared into fear as he watched Izuku stare at him with an empty look with his entire body covered with blood. You could barely see the green of the hoodie underneath all the blood. Izuku took one step forward, causing Fleck to take a step back. On instinct, in anger, he activated the lasers in the room to attack Izuku. Izuku flickered for barely a second, as if you blinked and all the turrets were instantly destroyed. Izuku started to walk towards Fleck, making him back up in fear. He ignored his fear and tried to attack Izuku. A fist imprinted into his chest before he got launched into a wall, making a giant crater. Fleck, now in his white form, was all broken and bruised as one punch had overworked his quirk in an instant. Fleck fell from the wall onto the floor as he tried to crawl away until Izuku stepped on his broken leg, making him stay put and to scream in pain. He didn't even get a chance to beg for mercy as Izuku brought his other foot straight down on Fleck's head, killing him. Izuku lifted his foot out of the corpse and realized a shaky breath as he realized he let his anger control him again. Flecht probably didn't have to die, but his fate never really mattered in the grand scheme of things. This was something he didn't feel like leaving to chance in the future, so he decided to take care of it now. Izuku walked out of the fortress and slowly floated up into the sky until he was a good few kilometers above the fortress. He took a deep breath as he let OFA course through his body. As he quickly reached his 100%, the sky started reacting violently from the power Izuku was releasing as it darkened with thunder. He then let Fajin mix in with its max, causing his cyanish glow slowly mix with a yellow, causing him to glow full green now as he made his hand flat. Izuku. Full cowling 100% plus Fajin max. Divine chop. Izuku chopped down, causing the mountain to cut clean in half and everything behind it as well for miles before the misplaced rocks started to cave in on each other, destroying the facility completely. Izuku sighed as he let OFA die down and started to fly back to Japan. At the speed he was going, he should be back the day before they leave for the summer camp. Hopefully it won't be that different. Narrator Pav. Izuku was tailing a school bus in his dirty green hoodie. Today was the day they would go to the summer camp. Izuku wasn't going to be too active during the initial part but would step in if he deems that it has changed too much. One thing though is that he won't let Ragdoll lose her quirk. He just didn't see a need for it to be lost. But one thing was certain, it was close to the curtain call. It was time for the final act. Izuku saw the bus door open, letting Class 1A free to stretch their legs. Out of the bus came Eri, which made Izuku tighten his fist anger until he let it go since he knew this was a risk. He saw Kota watch the class with a large smile, with it looking like he was excited to see the future heroes, making Izuku gain a sad smile. Kota went to go talk to Eri, but she ignored him with a look of boredom, but Kota took it as shyness as he established himself as her friend, making Izuku chuckle at Eri's face of discomfort. Izuku watched Class 1A get launched into the forest, which caused him to chuckle lightly from the memory. He was far up in the sky to the point he probably barely looked like a speck, so he wasn't too worried about being caught. Izuku went through the options of what could happen and made simple plans for each one. For example, if the League of Villains didn't even show up to the summer camp, Izuku will go straight to the final base and kill them all. However, he doesn't want it to happen like that. He wants a student to get captured and for All Might to fight AFO, then Izuku would step in. The people of Japan needed to see their symbol of peace fall, or it will be impossible for the heroes of the future to establish their legacy and make the people feel safe. Izuku would try his best to make sure no one of importance will die, but he is willing to make sacrifices because who knows what the League would do with a captive while backed into a corner. Izuku sighed as he watched Class 1A escape the forest. Hopefully he won't have to make a sacrifice. The training camp was mostly the same, with very few differences from Izuku's own timeline. One change was the water hoses being there as trainers, making Izuku happy. The main difference Izuku noticed was that his past self is way stronger than he was at the time, probably 30%, maybe a max 35%, however still no sign of the other users' quirks, so that's good. He noticed that this Izuku, or Deku, which is what he's going to call him from now on, is way closer to his Uraraka than he was. Hell, they could be mistaken for dating. He envied this Deku. Tonight should be the attack on the camp and time for some action. He was feeling bored. Izuku was watching Kota and Eri play on the mountain from the sky when he saw a figure in hood start to approach the children. Kota instantly went in front of Eri to protect her when the hooded man took his hood off, revealing Spinner. It seems Spinner was sent to kidnap Eri, probably to resume the experiments, and Izuku noticed that Spinner was wearing a mix between his and Stain's costume, which disgusted him. Izuku appeared next to Spinner and backhanded him into the mountainside, killing him instantly. Izuku turned to the two children and motioned for them to hop on his back. Eri did without hesitation while Kota reluctantly did. After securing them, Izuku took off, noticing the blue flames of the forest and the pink mist had started to form around the forest. Izuku dropped off the kids near the cabins and bolted towards the corner of the camp. As he arrived, he saw Magna and Nomu standing over the unconscious body of Ragdoll. The Nomu picked her up and was about to walk away when Izuku arrived, shoulder-checking Magna through several trees until he couldn't be seen anymore. Izuku then uppercutted the Nomu, turning its upper body into red mist, dropping Ragdoll, who got caught by Izuku before she fell to the ground. Izuku then took off towards the main camp with Ragdoll. As he arrived he saw that Aizawa had just taken care of the Dabi clone and that several 1A and 1B students were exiting the forest with escorts from the wild pussy cats and water hoses. Izuku. From the students that are here, I determined that Mustard, Moonfish, Chainsaw Nomu, Dabi, Toga, Twice, Compress and Kurogiri are the only villains left. Izuku hovered down alerting the survivors and heroes of his presence. They quickly went to defensive positions around the students, their faces filled with panic as they saw the unconscious ragdoll in his hands. Izuku however didn't even say anything as he laid her down and was about to take off when Aizawa wrapped his capture scarf around Izuku, making him turn towards Aizawa with a, "You serious, look. Aizawa. I can't let you go. You have caused far too much destruction with your rampage. Tell me, why did you do it?" Izuku looked at Aizawa with a dead glare, releasing more and more killing intent, causing the students to buckle from the pressure and fear, while the heroes instinctively stepped back in fear. Izuku. I did it because it was necessary. One day you will thank me, but I'm not done yet. Aizawa. What about the other pillars? What did you do to them? Izuku let Black Whip loose, tearing the scarf apart as Izuku started to float, getting ready to handle some more problems. Izuku. There was no other pillars. Izuku then took off towards the pink mist, landing next to Mustard, making him panic and miss the shot he had on Kendo. Izuku then grabbed Mustard by the neck and snapping it, killing him instantly. Before Kendo and Tetsu could confront Izuku, Dark Shadow started his rampage in the middle of the forest, letting Izuku slip into the skies. Izuku let the rest of the event take place naturally, with him just watching intently, ready to step in if he needed to. Letting Moonfish get knocked out by Dark Shadow, Uraraka handing Toga a fat L, Yaoyorozu surviving against the Nomu and putting the tracker on, Compress kidnapping Tokiyami and Bakugo, with Deku and company trying to get them back. Something different happened. Deku was easily able to catch up to Mr. Compress, tackling him midair, causing the two marbles to roll out on the floor in front of the Vanguard action squad. Deku was easily able to grab one of the marbles and was about to grab the other until a thrown knife forced him to pull his hand back. Toga rushed Deku with a crazed smile, saying that she was going to cut him, but Deku air flicked her back with his finger and reached for the marble again, but Dabi got it first, opening it, revealing Bakugo. The portal opened with Dabi trying to Bakugo into it. This time Deku could easily catch up and take Bakugo back, but as he was about to jump, a black tendril erupted from the ground, holding his ankle down. Just like that, Bakugo was taken. Izuku looked from behind a tree, retracting the tendril, whispering to himself that it was the endgame now. To him this was possibly the best scenario that could have happened. Narrator Pav. Today was the day of the raid, with Izuku on a rooftop of a building in Kamino Ward, right in front of the last Nomu factory and the place where AFO was hiding. Izuku wasn't too worried about Bakugo's rescue since he had faith in All Might and the others, plus Shigaraki wasn't much of a threat right now. The real wildcard was this bastard who knows what he'll do when he's backed up into a corner. He would intervene when Shiggy and his thugs are brought here, kill them while AFO was fighting All Might. Once he was down with handjob, he will step in and finish that ugly bastard once and for all. Izuku heard a loud boom in the distance and knew the raid had started, and sure enough, Mount Lady appeared in front of him, kicking the warehouse in half. Izuku used Black Whip to grab a piece of rebar from the debris and got ready for the main event. The raid went exactly the same, with AFO appearing, knocking out the second squad with ease, summoning Shigaraki with his goons and Bakugo with the black goo quirk, and then finally starting the battle with All Might as he rocketed into the walking corpse. As Izuku saw the remaining league members, Shiggy, Dabi, Compress, Toga, Kurogiri, Twice and an injured Magna, slowly surround Bakugo, he decided now was the perfect time. Izuku picked up the rebar and threw it like a javelin at the group, piercing Twice straight through the head, killing him instantly and shocking the league, Bakugo, the public that was watching through the news, the rescue Bakugo squad. All Might and AFO just raised his eyebrow in interest. A blur of green rocketed at Kurogiri, showing Izuku, who gave his metal brace a dropkick, landing on him, shattering the brace and surrounding ground. Izuku stepped off the corpse as it started to spaz out due to the broken collar, with the shadows that made up Kurogiri to start going haywire. Izuku grabbed the spasming shadows and tossed it to Magna, who instinctively caught it. As soon as it made contact with him, the shadows expanded, consuming the upper half of Magna and the half of Compress, who was next to him. The shadows collapsed on themselves, showing the mutilated corpses of Magna and Compress. The League backed up as Izuku glared at them with toxic green eyes. Izuku turned his head to the unnerved Bakugo and tilted his head in gesture to scram before turning back to the remaining villains. Toga. I thought you said he wouldn't be a problem. Shiggy. Dabi. So much for being a hero. Shigaraki was silent as he grinded his teeth in anger since this monster was in his way once again. No, he can't be stopped here. He still needs to destroy this society. He needs them to feel his pain. Shigaraki in the corner of his eye saw the hiding camera crew and smirked as he realized words last longer than actions. Shigaraki. Aren't you supposed to be better than heroes? I distinctly remember you saying you would make our society better, make Japan a better place. Yet, you have probably killed more than me at this point and defiantly cause more damage than us. Why go through all this trouble to kill some low-class villains like little old me? Izuku, you are necessary sacrifices for the greater good, well, actually more like obstacles that are in the way of the greater good. No one will care once you're gone or even notice when I take care of you. You are insignificant pieces of shits that just want people to suffer just because your life wasn't like theirs. You will always just be trash. Even if you turn this entire country into a wasteland, you will still be the trash of society. Shigaraki growled as he tossed his masked hand aside, showing his chappy anger-filled face. Shigaraki. You are what is wrong with this society. Hero society. Just because you have a powerful quirk you think you can do whatever you want, push us weaker folk around and get us to do what you want. You probably had a sheltered life, always getting what you want, a lot of friends, great food and probably a girlfriend. While I had to scour trash cans for food, so don't tell me you know what's best for society. Izuku. Didn't you kill your whole family and that's why you had to scour for food? Don't lie, I know all of your origins. You blame society for your shitty lives when you all choose this. Dabi could have returned to his family, probably be the light for his father, but he cowered away into villainy. Toga was sick in the head and never got help even when she knew she was sick. And you are just a disgrace. You blame heroes for your problems, but your father hated heroes only because of your master, and now you are just like your father. And stop acting like you care about this society. You just want to destroy everything because you're just a boy that killed his whole family out of fear. Izuku raised his hands outward at the fuming villains. Izuku. It's not like it matters anymore, but you blame heroes for everything, but 95% problems in society are caused by people like you. I admit this society is a mess and needs to change, but destroying everything just because your childhood was shitty is not the way. I mean, look at you three alone. A psychopath that was told to stop being one, a jealous boy who tried to kill his little brother because his quirk was better, and a traumatized child that blames heroes for his problems even though his hero-hating father just beat him because he wanted to become one. You blame society but refuse to take any blame yourself. You three were always going to be like this, unwanted. Izuku disappeared in a flash as his fist went straight through Dabi's chest. Toga screamed in rage as she rushed Izuku, who yanked his fist out and went to Toga. Toga tried to stab him, but he grabbed her by the wrist, breaking it, causing her to drop the knife. Izuku grabbed the knife and started stabbing Toga repeatedly in the stomach with immense anger. After the 20th stab that he did in a second, he stabbed her chest and dropped her body and started slowly walking towards the terrified Shigaraki. Before Izuku could finish him off, a yellow blur hit Shigaraki in the back of the head, knocking him out. Izuku looked at Gran Torino with a bored look as the old man glared at him with fury. It seems while he was monologuing, AFO revealed Shigaraki was Nana, grandson, so Gran Torino decided to save him. Izuku was impressed by the smart play by AFO, since All Might and GT would do anything to save Nana's legacy and AFO's future vessel. It's a shame Izuku didn't hold the same idea. Izuku couldn't walk towards the downed Shigaraki, but stopped again when he saw the Bakugo rescue squad also stand with GT to protect Shigaraki. Izuku sighed in annoyance as he knew he didn't have time for this. He could see the All Might fight was nearing its end. Izuku turned around and picked up the rebar again from Twice's skull as he started to walk towards the All Might fight. He turned around though to get across one more message. Izuku. What's the point? I'm just going to kill him later. Izuku stood on top of some debris as he looked down at the two titans fighting until a loud shockwave occurred, turning All Might into his true form. Izuku started stretching as he knew it was now or never. As AFO was about to start monologuing Izuku through the rebar in front of him, causing him to shut up and turn towards Izuku. AFO started laughing as his eyes gazed upon the man that's been causing him so much trouble and costed years of preparations. AFO, it's you, the person who's been a pain in my side for the last year. So why all the trouble for me? You want power, money, fame, revenge, maybe I killed your family. Izuku. You did, but not yet at least. AFO. Huh. The wind picked, causing Izuku's hoodie to fall back, revealing his green hair and eyes. Izuku responded with yanking off his mask, showing his face. The world stood still at the reveal of the last Pilar's face, with some having very different reactions. AFO raised his non-existent eyebrow in confusion. All Might stood there completely frozen in shock. Deku looked like he saw a ghost as he stared at older looking him, with the rescue Bakugo squad feeling the same. It was quiet in the dorms as the classes looked in shock at his face, especially Aizawa and Uraraka. Inko looked at the television with shock as she collapsed against the couch. Kirishima leaned towards Deku and whispered something. Kirishima. Do you have a older brother, Midoriya? Deku. And no, I don't. The camera crew got a little closer as they wanted to get the best scoop, and in order to do that they needed to hear what they are saying. AFO. And who might you be? Izuku. My name is Izuku Midoriya. The man that is going to kill you. AFO. You know I would believe you if it weren't for the fact that I can see the real Izuku Midoriya over there hiding with his friends. Next time you try to pretend to be someone, at least pick someone close to your age. I mean, look at you. You're probably in your early 20s while Izuku Midoriya is barely 15. So, I'm going to ask again, who are you? Izuku. I already told you. Izuku appeared in front of AFO with their faces almost touching as Izuku glared into AFO's soul. Izuku. I'm the man that's going to kill you. Izuku punched AFO in the face, launching him into a building, causing it to collapse onto him. Izuku huffed as he tried his hardest to ignore the bright lights from the helicopter. Izuku heard shuffling behind him and turned around to see Skelemite struggling to stand as he trembled at the sight of the bloody Izuku. How? Izuku. I'll tell you after I handle this bastard. Now get out of here, I don't want you dying on me again. All Might was going to argue but knew he was in no shape to help Izuku, so he nodded and walked away to the nearby safe zone. Izuku turned towards the moving rubble as AFO tossed it aside as he started to float in the air with visible anger. Izuku scoffed as he swatted away the red tendrils AFO sent at him with little effort. Izuku powered up to 20% and launched himself at AFO as he made the abomination arm from his fight with All Might. Their fists met, causing an explosion of power, making a tornado around the battlefield and making a giant dust cloud as the tornado died down. The smoke cleared up instantly when Izuku waved his hand to the side. He wasn't going to let AFO hide. AFO was kneeling, holding his right arm that was only a stub now as Izuku had completely vaporized it with his punch. Izuku kicked the downed AFO in the gut, sending him flying into the sky, but he didn't go far as Izuku wrapped him in Black Whip and slammed AFO back into the ground. Izuku slowly walked to the injured AFO with a glare as he truly wanted to enjoy this one last time. AFO tried to crawl away but couldn't get far as Izuku used Black Whip to start dragging him slowly towards him. AFO started to panic as Izuku dragged him towards him. AFO. Wait. We can talk about this. I'll give you anything. Money, power, women, quirks, the whole world. You don't need to do this. Please have mercy. Izuku. You don't deserve mercy. Not now, not later, not anywhere. You always deserve death. If you hadn't figured it out yet, I'm not from this time. In my time you destroyed everything, you won. I didn't give up though. Ua didn't give up. The heroes didn't give up. We kept fighting until you finally slipped up. I remember the joy I felt when I turned you into a red mist. The problem was after all the fighting I was the only one left. No one to come home to, no home to return to, and no one to celebrate with. I was alone. Izuku put a foot on AFO's chest, preventing him from moving and making sure he looks at the person that is going to kill him. Izuku. But I was given a second change. To give a world a chance to live in a peace. That is why I did what I did, because I knew what those people would do if left alone. I'll do everything to make sure this world is perfect compared to mine, even give my life. Now you are the last thing preventing that from happening. I hate to break it to you bastard, but I'm not letting this chance slip by. AFO. Wait. I'm your father. You have to show mercy. Izuku was instantly filled with rage and threw a punch at AFO's face, cracking the ground. Izuku straddled AFO as he let OFA increase in power, making him glow with green electricity. Izuku. Hey, you said the same thing last time and you know what I did. I turned you into a red paste onto the cement. Slam. Izuku punched again, cracking the ground. Izuku. You think I give you a shit who you are? Slam. Izuku. You think you earned a easy pass just because you're my father? Slam. Izuku. After what you did to Japan and UA. Slam. Izuku. To my friends. Slam. Izuku. To Kota. Slam. Izuku. To Eri. Slam. Izuku. To All Might. Slam. Izuku. To my predecessors. Slam. Izuku. To Mom. Slam. Izuku. To Ochaco. Slam. Izuku. The only thing you deserve is to go straight to hell, you son of AB. Several arms wrapped around Izuku, dragging him off of the body of AFO. Izuku was enraged and tossed the people off him as he looked who stopped. As he huffed and puffed in anger, he slowly calmed down as he saw the entire hero roster that came to the raid tried to pull him off, even Skelemite, Torino and his younger self. Izuku turned to AFO and finally calmed down as he saw AFO was long dead, probably after the second punch, his head just red paste on the cracked ground. Izuku quickly started to check his body, confusing the crowds until he stopped and instantly went into another rage as he turned towards the police van that was loading up Shigaraki. He was about to charge it, but he heard a whisper in his ear that made him immediately stop. Please rest, Izuku. Izuku. Ochaco. Izuku collapsed to his knees with a sigh as he felt all his exhaustion built. That's when he knew he was at his limit. He put his hands behind his head, allowing the heroes to put anti-quirk cuffs on him and quickly restrain him and stuff him in a different van. As Izuku sat there in cuffs, he let sleep take him as he felt his exhaustion take over his body. Then it was dark. Narrator Pav. The world was in chaos after the events of the Camino Ward, since they heard everything, from Izuku saying he was from the future to AFO calling him his son. What were they supposed to think? Their symbol of peace was forcibly retired. The mass murderer Pillar was actually from the future and his present self was at UA to be a hero. To make it worse, he was the son of the world's greatest villain. Everyone was split on what to do. Should they punish the younger Izuku too for his future self's crimes? Was the Pillar even from the future? Should the future Izuku be put to death, jailed forever, or maybe even pardoned? Should they have the present Izuku killed since he was the son of the world's most dangerous villain? Should they even allow him to become a hero? The Hero Association already came to their solution, which was the death penalty for the future Izuku and to imprison the present Deku for the rest of his life. Before they could do anything, a massive anonymous leak occurred revealing the Hero Association's crimes to the world and the heinous crimes they had heroes commit. Quickly the Prime Minister had every single employee, including the President and many heroes, imprisoned and dissolved the Hero Association, saying a new one would be made in the future. Now Izuku's fate was in the Prime Minister's hands. It has been 1 week since the Camino raid, and right now in the Class 1A dorm you could say the atmosphere was tense. The students of UA besides 1A and surprisingly B shunned Deku as if he truly was his murderer self, telling him he could never be a hero and that he would be just like his father. It was rough for Deku, but thankfully all his friends knew that the Izuku they saw on TV that day wasn't the Deku they knew. However, Deku has slowly started to dislike his future self due to all the problems he has given him. Izuku was in a completely white room, strapped in a straitjacket with enough anti-quirk cuffs on him that he could barely move from the weight. He also had a large metal collar around his neck that was even stronger anti-quirk suppressant. For the past week he's just been kept in a white room, isolated from everyone with all these cuffs. Eventually he got escorted to another white room, but he could tell this was an interrogation room based off the long table in the middle of the room. Izuku was sat down and cuffed into the bolted down chair with 4 heavily armed guards in each corner of the room staring at him to make sure he doesn't move a muscle. Soon the door opened, revealing Detective Naomosa and Nezu, who quickly sat down on the 2 chairs across from Izuku. Detective was honestly saddened by the look of the older Izuku. He looked just broken. His eyes had no light and the blank expression that showed no emotion. The contrast between him and the present Deku was night and day, but at least night still had light in it. He was like an abyss of nothing. Detective. Let's start this interrogation and then Nezu here wants to talk to you. Got it, Izuku. Yes, Detective. Name, Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. Detective. True. Blood type, Izuku. Oh something. Detective. True. Age, Izuku. I don't honestly know, maybe 19. I stopped counting after I turned 16. Detective. True. What is your quirk, Izuku? Do you really want me to say it in front of all these people? Detective. Number. Are you really from the future? Izuku. Yes. Detective. How far in the future? Izuku. 4 or so years. Detective. True. Every single thing he has said is true. Nezu, the floor's yours. Nezu cleared his throat as he scanned the older kid for a few seconds, finding the right words before he began. Nezu. So would you like to tell your tale? Izuku. Number. Not until that man is dead. Nezu. You already killed AFO. Izuku. I wasn't talking about him. You know who I want. Nezu. Sorry. Not happening, he's under All Might's protection now. Izuku. He could be under God's protection himself. I don't give a damn, give me his head or I take it myself. Nezu. Not happening. How about a compromise? What could we do to stop you from another rampage? Izuku. Lock him up. Make sure he never sees the light of day ever again. No parole, no therapy, nothing. I want him to rot in that cell for the rest of his life. That is my only request. If you don't, I will break free and take him out in my own way. Also destroy his quirk. I know you have the research, so if you don't make him rot, at least take his quirk. Nezu. We will discuss this later, but I have something else I want to tell you. We want to hold a press conference where you show the world the future you saw. We have a quirked individual that can upload memories onto a screen while she is connected with someone, and the detective will be here to answer questions to show you are telling the truth. But it will held at UA, so you are coming with me. Izuku. Okay, because I know once you see it you will agree with my punishment for Shigaraki. Izuku was escorted outside where he saw hundreds of people protesting outside the prison. Some protesting for his release while most asking for his death. Izuku ignored them as he sat in the back of the police van. Once they arrived at UA, Izuku was escorted to a secure room while passing many students who avoided him out of pure fear, but Izuku didn't blame them. He did murder a guy on national television. Izuku was guided into a small dorm room at the edge of the campus with it only having a bed with nothing else. Izuku was decuffed, which confused him until the officer said the room was quirk dampening, so there was no point in trying to escape. Izuku was left alone and he just sat on his bed looking at a small mirror that was attached to the wall. He looked like shit, but he honestly couldn't tell if that was because of his imprisonment or has he always looked like this. His eyes were sunken and hollow with his green eyes dull. He looked tired and his hair looked even more messy than usual. He sighed as he just sat there in contemplation of his actions since it was finally sinking in. Izuku. Am I doing the right thing, Ochaco? Izuku slept on the answer as he laid on his bed and let sleep take him. For the first time in a while he didn't have any nightmares. The next day Izuku was escorted to an auditorium in UA that could house a lot of people. The people in attendance would be several news stations for questions and broadcasting, all of 1A, the staff, and a few selected individuals, Eri, Inko, Gran Torino and Uraraka's family, at Izuku's request. Izuku looked at them for a second before looking forward again, seeing his stage, which had 3 chairs with dozens of machines attached to them and a giant screen. Izuku was sat in the middle chair and strapped down and wired up to the many machines. The detective walked forward and cleared his throat as he began to talk. Detective. As you know, this is the supposed time traveler that is wanted for many crimes, to the point it would probably take me an hour to list them all. Known as Izuku Midoriya, or his alias for a good year, Zuko Turner. Now you may be wondering, what are all these machines? It's simple, they will help prove whether or not this man is telling the truth. The chair on the right is for me to use my quirk. It will show you the result of my quirk lie detector. The chair on the left is for a fellow officer who has the ability to show memories onto projections. Now let's begin. The detective was strapped to the chair with a fellow officer strapped to the other one. Soon the machine was a good and now it was time to start. It was silent for a second, so Izuku just closed his eyes as he waited for the first question, which came from Bakugo. No surprise there. Bakugo. What's your name extra? Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. The screen behind Izuku lit up green as it said true, causing murmurs to break out in the room and many room around the nation as that confirmed they are the same person. A reporter stood up and cleared their throat as they decided to go next. Reporter 1. Are you really from the future? Izuku. Yes, around 4 or 5 years in the future. 5 when I first arrived here, but it's 4 now. The screen lit green again, showing true and causing the room and Japan to go into an uproar. Questions were rapid-fired at him, causing Izuku to sigh as he waited for the authorities to get a handle on the room. After a while it calmed down again. The questions slowly came, with Izuku getting true for all of them. Reporter 2. Why did you do all this? Izuku. To ensure you all a better future than I had. Aizawa. What did you do to all the other pillars? Izuku. There was no other pillars, just me. Midnight. That can't be possible. How can you have that many quirks? Izuku looked at All Might and Deku, giving them a look as if he was asking permission. All Might and Deku shared a look before they reluctantly nodded towards Izuku. Izuku sighed as he looked back at Midnight. Izuku. It'll take too long to explain. You'll see it in a few minutes anyway. Mina. Were you seeing anyone at the time? Everyone just looked at her with a seriously look, causing her to shrink in embarrassment and a whispered sorry. However, she still wanted to hear his answer. Izuku closed his eyes as he let a shaky breath escape, making some of the older folk look at him in concern. Izuku. Yeah, we were engaged. The room grew quiet as something happened, evident by the pained and guilty expression Izuku had. Ochaco wanted to ask something, but her voice died in her throat since she could tell it was a bad time. Nezu cleared his throat as he went to ask his question. Nezu. How bad was the situation before you arrived here? Izuku. I was the only person alive in Japan, so as you could see I was desperate. Iida. What happened? Izuku. I think it's better if you just watch. The cop to Izuku's right explained that it will feel like someone was watching him in his sleep, and all he has to do is remember and we will see the rest. Izuku nodded in understanding as he closed his eyes and started remembering the past he wanted to return to and forget at the same time. The screen came to life as it showed Izuku's POV of his diagnosis as a child. Slowly Izuku's life was shown, from his POV to his trip home after the diagnosis, to his years of bullying, to Bakugo telling him to kill himself, his encounter with All Might, to his attempt at saving Bakugo, and finally All Might's proposal. Each scene would last few minutes before moving on to the next, constantly jumping in time skips. No one knew what to think about Izuku's life, but the screen just kept going. Izuku's training montage, to the entrance exam, the first day of UA, the USJ and Sports Festival. The events all just kept passing by with little change, making them uncomfortable as they saw this Izuku used to be exactly like Deku, so what happened? What broke the cinnamon roll? The screen just kept going. Island, the internships, Izuku's fight with Stain, the training camp, and then AM versus AFO, with a very different outcome and signaling to the world now they were going to start seeing the future. They saw the provisional exams with Izuku passing pretty easily, to Aries' rescue with his battle with Overhaul, the Culture Festival, the Naboo Island incident with his battle against Nine, and then his fight with Humorize. Japan watched in horror as the first battle between Shigaraki and Izuku ended with so many casualties. What made them angry though was the many heroes that just turned their back on Japan. Ua and friends grew shocked when they saw Izuku walk away just so no one else got hurt. They couldn't help but feel the familiarity between the current Izuku and his past. They grew happy as they saw Class 1A basically drag Izuku back to Ua. Anger and betrayal filled the room as it was revealed Aoyama was the traitor. He made no movement of resistance as he dragged off in cuffs. The memories continued, showing the second battle, with it being another draw with so many lost on both sides, the main ones being Shoto, Endeavor, Hawks and Mirko. The memories kept passing, making Japan more and more depressed and sad as they watched their country slowly die. Battles littering the country as the heroes tried to take back their country while the villains kept causing more and more chaos. They felt bad for Izuku as he tried to keep the remaining heroes going by his example, wearing his fake smile as he tried to be the symbol of hope. What started the waterworks was the constant funerals Izuku attended, with each one his smile getting smaller. The small moments with Ochaco made the mood lighter, as it showed she was the one he was talking about, making Uraraka blush. Their small moments when they had dinner, when they cuddled after they came back from a hard mission, them comforting each other as they cried for their fallen friends, Izuku proposing to Ochaco with a broken ring and her accepting. Izuku didn't show the intimate moment, but he showed the aftermath of them both laying in bed naked under the covers, making Deku and Uraraka blush crimson. The final memories started to appear, showing the older Bakugo saying his last goodbyes, Izuku telling his goodbyes as he left, and then finally his final fight with AFO and Shigaraki. Speaking of which, let's start where we left off the last time. As Izuku's punch was about to land on AFO's face, Shigi's shoulder checked him out of the way, taking the punch, launching him so fast that it seemed like he just teleported out of the way. In reality, Shigaraki was embedded in the side of Mount Fuji, which was across then entire Japan, causing it to explode due to the force of the landing. Izuku scoffed in annoyance as was forced to dodge several red and black tendrils sent at him by AFO. Izuku. Seems Shigaraki has the stronger regeneration still. Izuku kicked the remaining tendrils, shattering them as he extended his arm out to the side, sending Black Whip towards a skyscraper. Izuku channeled Fajin into Black Whip as it slowly grew larger, wrapping around the skyscraper. Izuku yelled in exertion as he lifted the skyscraper and slammed it down onto AFO, causing a massive explosion of dust. Everyone just watched with mouths hanged open as they just watched someone use a skyscraper as a weapon. Danger sense activated, making Izuku tilt backwards and bend his body as Shigaraki rocketed by with an outstretched palm, barely missing Izuku's face. Izuku did a roundhouse at Shigaraki's head, instantly turning it to red paste as he got launched straight into the ground. Even though danger sense warned him, Izuku wasn't fast enough to dodge, only to block as a super-armed punch from AFO launched Izuku across the city through several buildings, making them collapse from the force. Izuku growled as the debris off of him and activated full cowling back to 100%. Izuku dodged a massive punch from AFO as he back-flipped away and drop-kicked Shigaraki in the chest, sending him a little back, but Shigaraki shrugged it off due to a quirk that made his skin into diamonds. Shigaraki reached down to the ground with his hand and AFO tried to punch Izuku again with his super arm. Izuku launched a Black Whip around Shigi's wrist, stopping the hand, and channeled Fajin into his leg as he kicked AFO in the face, sending him into the sky with a broken mask. Izuku tugged Shigaraki towards him with Black Whip and gave him a backhand strike to the face, launching Shigaraki miles away. As he awaited their return, Izuku took several deep breaths as he wiped sweat off of his brow. Even though he was way stronger than both of them, Izuku didn't have unlimited stamina and regeneration like them too. The world figured this out too. He was fighting two titans that could constantly regenerate, so how did he win? The fight went on for hours, evident by the sun going down and rising again with the loud booms and shakes throughout the ruined city, never stopping. Izuku constantly landing fatal blows on the two, but constantly just overwhelmed from their constant attacks, with some of them even landing hits on him, wearing him down. The sun rose for second time, but there was no booms or shakes anymore, just eerie silence. Izuku was kneeling on the ground, panting in a battered state with blood dripping down his head as a perfectly fine AFO and Shigaraki looked down him. AFO started laughing as he started clapping at the downed Izuku while Shigaraki just smirked at him. AFO. Finally, the line of that damned quirk will finally end. I would have liked to have it, but since there is no one to stand in my way anymore, I think it's better if I just let that quirk die. Once you're gone, sweet Izuku, nothing will stand in my way of world domination. This world will be mine. Shigaraki. What do you mean yours? If anything, it should be mine. I did most of the heavy lifting around here. They follow me, remember, not you. AFO. I think you should watch your tone, Tamura. Remember, I'm the only reason why you are this strong, the reason why you're even alive. Shigaraki. And I'm the only reason why you even got this plan to go this far. I don't think I need you anymore. I think you should let the younger generation take over here. AFO. And I think you should learn your place, Tenko. After all, you are just my body replacement. And just like that, the two titans started to attack each other, destroying each other's bodies and quirks. Izuku stepped back and hid behind a car as he waited for the opportunity, since he knew this would be his only chance. After a while, Izuku noticed the game changer. They were taking damage, but the wounds weren't healing. Instantly Izuku powered up again and went to end it. Izuku appeared next to Shigaraki with a glowing fist, causing Shigaraki's eyes to widen in fear. Izuku hit him, turning into a fatty red mist that turned into a pool of blood, making AFO back up in shock. Izuku stared at the blood, waiting for movement anything, but the puddle just remained blood, causing Izuku to sigh in relief. Izuku turned to AFO with a glare, causing him to fall on his ass as he tried to back up as Izuku slowly walked towards him. AFO used the heritage card, but Izuku just brushed it off as he turned AFO into the same red mist and waited for regeneration that never came. Once he made sure, he flew off towards Ua. The world witnessed the carnage Izuku returned to his rampage on the villains and turncoat heroes, and then his burial of all that was left. What broke their hearts was the broken look he had as he buried each person he knew was good and gave them a proper burial. Especially since it took from that sunrise to the dead of night in cold rain. The screen cut of power as Izuku turned to the god, making sure they didn't see them. Izuku opened his eyes to a wave of pity looks from the auditorium, causing him to look down in shame, and closed his eyes. He felt a pressure on his leg, causing him to open his eyes. Eri was hugging his leg with tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything but just hugged harder. Izuku felt another pressure and saw his mom bring his head to her chest in a comforting manner. Soon, the whole room slowly brought Izuku into a hug, causing him to finally break his walls down. Tears welled up in his eyes as he started to sob and let it all out. Izuku allowed to roam free and was even offered a hero's license, but Izuku refused to even touch it, saying he's no hero anymore. Not long after the press conference, the whole Meta Liberation Army turned themselves in after what they did and what free roaming quirks did to Japan. Shigaraki chained deep down in Tartarus and his quirk destroyed by a Eri bullet. He will never see the light of day again. Izuku offered his help as an teaching assistant to Ua since he wanted them to be their best versions. That will be his final goal, and then his mission will be over. Narrator Pav. * 1 month after last chapter. Izuku was laying on the roof of the 1A dorm staring at the beautiful morning sky. He had already been there for several hours, but he didn't seem to mind. He does this every day until 1A is in heroic class, which he would watch from afar, usually on a nearby roof. After the events of the conference, Izuku was made a pseudo-student where he would attend classes with 1A so he could eventually become a hero. The only problem was Izuku refused to go and never showed up unless it was the heroic class, which he also refused to participate in and only watched. When he was confronted by an angry Aizawa and disappointed Nezu on why he hasn't showed up, the answer made them just depressed. Izuku, I'm not a hero and will never be a hero, so there's no point in me attending. Now let me spend the rest of my days in peace. At first reluctant, the two eventually let the subject go and just asked Izuku to attend hero classes, which he agreed to. Nezu gave him one final knowing look before leaving Izuku in the room that day. This wasn't the only case of Izuku turning down stuff. He refused to do interviews, denied the Prime Minister's request to help establish a new hero association, and he refused a hero license to the point he destroyed it right in front of the government officials that gave it to him. Izuku meant it when he said he was only going to rest. That didn't mean he was completely detached though. He had small talk with 1A, however it was still tense due to Izuku's actions. The emotions were always varied with Class 1A's thoughts on Izuku. Some viewed him with pity, most fear, sadness, sympathy, confliction, and one with anger, Bakugo. He didn't blame them or hold it against them since this was still a very weird situation. He told them off the bat that if they wanted to learn more about their quirk or get stronger, just come to him and he'll give tips. So far no one has, but it has only been a month after a very crazy series of events, so he isn't too surprised about that. Besides just sitting on the roof, Izuku spends most of his time with Eri doing random junk, which greatly saddened Class 1A to Izuku's humor since they believed Eri was mute since she didn't talk to anyone. Also they loved doing stuff with her since she was seen as the little sister of 1A. However, when Izuku showed up, Eri completely did a 180, always talking to Izuku, doing everything with a smile and even laughing. One time 1A asked Eri if she wanted to go to an amusement park with them, but instantly ignored them and instead just watched clouds with Izuku, making them shocked that she actually chose him over them. Timeline-wise, Izuku would say it's around the time they prepared for the license exams and now would be the ultimate practice. As Izuku thought this over, he heard the door to the roof open, causing him to turn, and he almost choked on his saliva when he saw Uraraka step out from behind the door. Izuku immediately jumped up while clearing his throat. Izuku. Oh Uraraka. Good morning, what can I help you with? Uraraka. I was wondering if you were still offering those lessons. Izuku. Of course you interested. Uraraka. Yeah, I want to be stronger so I can stand by Deku's side. Izuku. I understand, we start tomorrow at 5 a.m. Uraraka's face paled and instantly started to plead if there was a different time. He said no and he'll see her tomorrow. The next day Izuku and Uraraka could be seen on the school's track running laps, with Uraraka looking like she wants to die while Izuku wasn't even sweating. They finished the mile with Uraraka using every ounce of willpower not to collapse right then and there. Izuku. Now for the next few months until your license exam we will work on your quirk and martial arts skills. Your quirk is actually not that hard to train compared to others, which is good. Here, hold these balls and make them float, but I want you to keep them around you. From what Ochaco told me from when she first tried it was that she imagined herself as the center of gravity and forced the items to be drawn to her like little moons. It'll be hard, so don't be disheartened if you fail. After that we will try to lower the amount of fingers you need to activate your quirk. So the training began with Uraraka trying her hardest in both her martial arts spars she had with Izuku and her quirk training. She is only able to have 2 small 5IB balls float around her for a couple minutes and was able to cut her activation down to 4 fingers after only 1 week. From what she was told, her future self was a different breed due to the constant years of fighting. She was able to activate her quirk with the slightest touch of 1 finger, could handle dozens of small boulders to float around her, could easily beat Izuku in a non-quirk fight. Her total weight she could float was 100 tons. She could determine whether or not she wanted something to float even when she had physical contact with the object, and the final thing was she had a quirk evolution. Izuku was telling this after a sparring lesson, causing Uraraka to perk up at the mention of quirk evolution. Uraraka. Quirk evolution. What's that? Izuku. Oh, a quirk evolution is when someone goes through an extreme situation or the quirk is worked beyond its limit. The quirk morphs into a stronger version of the user's quirk or the same quirk but with more addendums. For her evolution she gained the ability to increase someone's mass with the touch of her hand, similar activation to the old quirk, but from what she told me she imagined them getting heavier instead of lighter. She wasn't able to cut it down from 5 fingers though, unlike zero gravity. Uraraka. Could I get this evolution? Izuku. Right now, no. In the future, a possibility, but I don't know if you would even get the same ability. Anyways, time to start again. A month has passed with Uraraka showing immense progress, jumping from 16 in the 1A power rankings all the way to 5, causing Aizawa to go wide-eyed at the progress and many classmates congratulating her. Uraraka gave all the credit to Izuku. Oh, if you're wondering, they call him Dekiru so they don't mix him up with Deku. The class slowly after that each started to get advice from Izuku. Like him telling Kaminari to use his quirk like a dimmer rather than on and off switch. He told Momo don't forget that she can create all non-living things, which included gases. However, no one actually took his training regime besides Uraraka. Uraraka was at 3 fingers with her activation and was able to float 8 balls at a time and also raised her limit to 15 tons. Right now her and Izuku were on the roof with her on the ground healing from a beatdown in sparring once again until a thought crossed her mind. Uraraka. Dekiru-kun, why aren't you trying to get with me? Izuku looked at her for a second before looking to the sky with a sad look. Izuku. It's simple really. You aren't her. You may have the same voice, face, and personality, but I know deep down you aren't her. Just like you guys don't see me as Deku but as my own separate person. Uraraka. Oh, Izuku. Plus I don't want to cock-block my past self. Uraraka chalked on the water she was drinking and turned crimson as she glared at Izuku, who only chuckled lightly. Izuku. Heed my advice, Uraraka, just go for him. I know you think you would get in each other's way to being a hero, but it was quite the opposite. You two will push each other to be even better. You don't have to, but don't let what you two have become a what if. Izuku left, leaving the blushing Uraraka to think. However, what she didn't know was that her and her classmates would have a special class today. Class 1A and B were standing in the entrance of a training ground in confusion since they didn't know they would have a joint exercise today. They were in front of Mach City B, which was one of the old ones used for the entrance exams, making some students think they would fight some robots. Though that thought was destroyed instantly with Aizawa saying they would practice their ultimate moves on a volunteer. Footsteps made them turn around and actually started to get nervous. Izuku was wearing a long-sleeved UA tracksuit and gave the classes a light smile. Aizawa. Izuku here will a sort of test dummy, but that doesn't mean he won't fight back. He will be limited at 20% base quirk with no other quirks. The goal is for you to tear his suit, that is all the way you get it is up to you. Fight him one-on-one, 2 at a time or all of you at once. You all have 2 lives to get it done. Don't worry, Izuku's going to stay at the same power level for all of you. Izuku walked away into the city without turning back. Bakugo clenched his fist at the last remark, since it means Izuku was looking down on all of them. That was something he could not stand and already had his plan, to slaughter the future Deku. Izuku sat on the roof of a car in the middle of the city as he awaited for the challengers. The classes were led into a control room that had maps and layouts of the city, cameras of every corner and even medical supplies with refreshments. The main screen was a drone feed of Izuku showing him laying on top of a car taking a nap. That was the final straw for Bakugo as he rushed out the door and beelined it straight for Izuku. Izuku sighed as he heard the explosions heading straight for him and the loud profanities. He didn't understand most of them, but it probably was something about him being a Deku or something like that. Bakugo. Die Deku. Bakugo released a giant explosion onto where he was that was doubled because of the car Izuku was on, making a mini mushroom cloud. Bakugo smirked, but it turned into a scowl again when a rock hit the back of his head. Bakugo whirled around, seeing Izuku laying on top of a lamppost with a bored look. Izuku. Kinda expected more from you, to be honest. Bakugo launched at Izuku, throwing explosion after explosion, but Izuku just easily dodged or redirected the palms away. Honestly, as Izuku watched this timeline, Bakugo has probably been the biggest letdown out of all the classes. He isn't stronger than his counterpart, he has a worse attitude, and it seems he just stagnated completely to the point he dropped out of the top 5. It honestly made Izuku disappointed. Izuku pushed Bakugo's chest, launching him away into a car, making a dent on the side. Izuku. Force the sweat to spread throughout your palm for power and force it to compact to improve accuracy. Bakugo. Shut up. Bakugo kept trying to hit Izuku but couldn't land anything no matter how hard he tried. Izuku. Sloppy. Predictable. Could have landed a hit there. Tighten up your guard. Bakugo. Shut up. I don't need anyone's help to become number 1. Izuku. And that's why you will never become number 1, because you still don't realize you need help from others to get stronger. You can only get so far by yourself. Endeavor learned that the hard way. Bakugo. I'm not like you, Deku. I don't need help from anyone, like you did. Izuku. If you continue like this, you won't have anyone. Even if you became number 1 who would celebrate with you, you would have pushed everyone away. People wouldn't admire you, they would admire your quirk. You will never become like All Might with your attitude in the future, you realize that. Bakugo. And look where that got him. It made him weak and caused him to die like a bitch. Izuku. It made him strong and gave him the courage to die like a true hero. Someone like All Might would look to with respect. Bakugo growled in rage again as he charged Izuku, ready to try his AP shot, but Izuku's patience ran out as vein popped out on his forehead. Izuku. Fine. Let me show you the power friends can give you. Izuku powered up to 35%, but the pressure was so immense that Bakugo's body instantly stopped in fear as he couldn't move a muscle. Izuku turned to the west side of the city and swiped his right arm across his body as if he was stretching his arm. A large rush of wind escaped from Izuku's spot, rampaging across the west side of the city, completely leveling the entire area. Now it just looked like a wasteland of just dirt, making everyone just gape at the show of power. Izuku. That was my 35% and your Deku's 180%. With friends around and someone to fight for, your limits can never be limited. Head back to the control room and try again, you lost 1 life. The rest of you that are listening, don't worry, I'm not going to use my quirks. The classes were a little less worried, but a fire fueled with annoyance lit under them as they wanted to show Izuku that he shouldn't underestimate them. The masterminds of the classes quickly came together as they planned what to do. Izuku moved to the east side of the city to give the class a better opportunity to get the drop on him and waited for their assault. 45 minutes later. Izuku was napping when he heard a whizzing sound causing him to wake up and look into the sky. He saw several drills come from the sky and embed in the street and released a yellow smoke Izuku recognized as tear gas, causing him to jump backwards. Momo from a distance while using binoculars ordered the second artillery, with some classmates putting tennis-sized steel balls into mortars before launching them at Izuku. Izuku was now a good distance from the tear gas when he saw the steel balls coming at him. His danger sense whispered to him, causing his eyes to wander around him before smirking with approval. Izuku. 7 steel balls launched at me, which will most likely enlarge due to Kodai. Zero is most likely hiding nearby ready to tape my legs to prevent me from moving. If that fails, they most likely have backup teams. Dodge backwards. Shoto and Bakugo will most likely jump me. Forwards Deku would probably fight me. Right alleyway is most likely Ojiro and Sato, and finally the left alleyway is Eijiro and Tetsu. So, let's go up. Izuku jumped towards the balls, avoiding Zero's tape. Sure enough, all 7 steel balls tripled in size and were around the size of large boulders. Izuku smirked as he easily dodged the first 2, swatted away the third, making it embed in the side of a building, kicked the 4th and 5th into smithereens, and for the final 2 he caught both with one hand, shoving his fingers into them like they were bowling balls. Izuku tossed the first one at Deku, who was powered up and was trying to intercept Izuku. Deku's eyes popped in shock as he tried to catch the ball getting launched away. Izuku then threw the other one into the distance with it aimed perfectly as it headed straight for the rooftop where the mortars were. Momo. Oh shit, jump. Momo and several others jumped off the rooftop with parachutes as the large steel ball crashed into the roof, making the building collapse. Momo sighed in relief as she saw everyone was safe and quickly put a finger to her ear, revealing an earpiece. Momo. Plan A is dead, move on to Plan B. Deku, it's all up to you to create an opening. Deku tossed the steel ball aside with huff as powered up to 60% as new max. He took off his earpiece since he didn't want it to explode in his ear from the electricity bouncing off him. Deku. Roger that. Deku launched himself at the floating Izuku, causing Izuku to sigh as he leaned back, making Deku go over him. As Deku went over, Izuku grabbed his arms and did a backward stomp, sending Deku plummeting to the ground, making a crater. Izuku landed in front of the downed Deku, but Deku recovered quick and went for a punch at Izuku, who casually deflected and landed a devastating counter into Deku's stomach, making him spit out saliva as fell to his knees holding his stomach. Izuku. Learn actual martial arts for those times you fight someone with equal strength or they negate your quirk. Keep that guard tight even when you go for a punch. Also a little tip, try to contain your electricity, it packs a bigger punch when you land a hit. Like a double tap. Deku nodded as he went for a uppercut that Izuku caught easily with one hand. What he wasn't expecting was for Deku to wrap himself around his arm like an anaconda vice. It didn't hurt Izuku that much, but it did confuse him. He then felt two weights around his legs, causing him to look down and see Tetsu and Kirishima holding his legs down. He was about to pull them off with his free arm when Zero's tape wrapped around it, causing Izuku to look and see Zero, Shoji, Sato and the hairy guy from 1D struggling to keep it away. Izuku smiled at the plan as he saw Monoma running at him, and he saw a glint behind Monoma which showed Momo with a tranq gun. Monoma touched Izuku with a smirk as he powered up OFA and went for a punch but didn't do any damage, confusing him, but Izuku smirked as he headbutted Monoma, dropping him to the ground with a broken nose. Momo shot the tranq, but Izuku used his past self as a meat shield, causing Deku to slump as he fell asleep. Izuku with his now free arm tugged the tape, pulling the heavyweights off their feet. Izuku then grabbed both Tetsu and Kirishima by the throats, causing both them to activate their quirks to their ultimate moves, Red Riot Unbreaking and Full Steel Unbreakable. I made that second one up. That didn't bother Izuku as they just continuously slammed them into the ground like a pair of dumbbells. Momo shot another tranq, but Izuku used Kirishima as an shield and dropped the two lookalikes while sprinting at Momo. Momo kept trying to hit Izuku, but he would just dodge while he steamrolled any student that tried to get in his way until it was only Kaminari, Uraraka, Bakugo, Shoto and Momo. Bakugo did the AP Gatling, but Izuku would easily avoid the shots or use pieces of concrete he tore from the ground as a shield. Shoto tried to freeze Izuku's legs or get potshots with his fire, but it was useless as he took a roundhouse to the face, sending him into a car unconscious. Kaminari was also easily knocked unconscious after he tried to sacrifice play with his million volts attack. Izuku just went in the air ignoring the electric current. Momo surrendered after she saw it was pointless, making Izuku disappointed. Bakugo unleashed everything from his grenade gauntlets to several howitzer impacts, making the city looking like a war zone. However, Bakugo finally fell from exhaustion, causing Izuku to sigh in disappointment since he thought this would be more fun. He avoided a punch from Uraraka and returned his own punch, but it got blocked by a floating rock, causing Izuku's eyes to widen as he avoided another punch. Izuku backed up and smiled proudly as he saw dozens of small rocks floating around her like a protective shell. They started brawling. Whatever punch Izuku threw was easily blocked by a rock, but the rock would blow to smithereens every time Izuku landed one, meaning Uraraka only had limited amount of hits she could take. One thing that made Izuku happy as they traded blows was when she went for a punch that missed. She pushed a rock out of her orbit like a missile, hitting Izuku straight in the sternum, making him chuckle at the pain. Izuku. So she learned that she can manipulate her gravity to go in reverse. It took Ochaco 2 years to figure that out. They kept brawling, neither landing a real hit until Uraraka collapsed to her knees trying not to puke, making Izuku stopped as he went to check on her until she looked up at him with determination as she put her fingers together in her signature pose. Uraraka. Release. Izuku looked up and his eyes boggled as he saw a portion of a building come crashing down on him. He looked down at Uraraka to see how she would avoid it, but she just smirked at him with a knowing look, causing him to growl as he picked her up and tried to avoid the falling building. He did easily, but he felt his chest a little colder, causing him to look down to see Uraraka made a giant cut with a sharp rock, looking at him with a shit-eating grin. The bell sounded, signaling Izuku had lost, causing him to sigh as he heard loud cheering as he put Uraraka down. He couldn't help but smile anyway as he saw the classes lift Uraraka up in celebration, even with Bakugo and Shoto participating. They truly would be a shining beacon of heroes in the future. It's a shame he won't be there to see it. Narrator Pav. 2 buses could be seen stopping in front of a facility where there were hundreds of teenagers, all in their uniform, looking nervous, with even more buses stopping to drop off more kids. What was special about these 2 buses were 2 things: the giant letters painted on the side showing UA and the occupants of the buses. One holding Class 1A and the other 1B. Izuku was in the 1A bus sitting next to Aizawa in civilian clothes. He was offered one last time to participate, but he ignored the request and said he would be there just to watch. After they exited the buses, the exact same thing happened with the other schools scouting out UA like in his time. But to prevent any awkward encounters, he went straight to the spectator stands, leaving Aizawa to give the pep talk. There wasn't that many spectators allowed this time. All the spectators were put in a suite-like room which had camera feeds everywhere of the testing ground, but the main camera was an interview room, making Izuku confused. Later on, once all of the examinees and spectators were in place, it was explained to Izuku that the exam was completely changed by both the inspiration of Izuku's memories and the ideology of All Might. Instead of a cleansing of the weak like his exam in the past, future. Anyways. The first portion was instead a written morality test followed by an in-person interview, with the interviewer being a mind reader so they can know if they lied. It seems the government finally realized a great combat quirk doesn't equal a great hero or loyalty. The written test was sent to the spectators via a tablet so their teachers could also see their answers plus the interviewer. The questions were simple: just what would you do in certain impossible situation, and sometimes they would add more to the scenario, like who was with them quirk-wise. The small details of the situation, like how much longer until the buildings collapses or how long the fire has been going on, and also how many civilians there are in the building and what the villain can do. The final question was a simple one: what is a hero to you? Izuku looked over the many written tests and honestly he wasn't impressed at all. Some of the cases, when they were given teammates, most just sent their teammates to do the hard work for them under the excuse they needed to calm the crowd. While others that did come up with a plan were all terrible and would fail miserably if tried. The interviews weren't any better, with 90% of the candidates just straight up lying, even though the questions were just what they thought of things like quirkless or villains. Honestly severely disappointing, and it showed how flawed the hero system was before. They couldn't even honestly say why they wanted to be a hero. However, one kid stood out to the proctors, and it was a green-haired child who had a bright smile through the whole test and interview. His written test was perfect with every scenario most likely to succeed out of all the examinees and would either result in no casualties or minimal casualties. The interview was even better with him not lying once and always giving a genuine answer based on his beliefs. Truly this was the next symbol that Japan needed to emerge, thought the proctors. Soon the examinees were taken to a briefing room reminding Izuku of his time in the entrance exam. The proctor explained the situation while each examinee looked at a tablet that had several options on it. The proctor explained that they will each pick a classification of what type of hero they want to be, since that is a part of the new agenda of the Reformed Hero Association. The options were combat hero, with the sub-classes being frontline, support, crowd control. The next option was rescue hero with no subclasses, and then finally was the night prowlers. Individuals who will basically only do night patrols. However, there was a last option slightly separated from the others and said nothing but hero. Soon the examinees were quickly choosing their roles, most egos too high to realize they were making the wrong choice. Almost 95% of the examinees choose combat hero, 80% of those choose frontline. Even though almost all of them didn't fall into that category, they knew that's where all the high roller heroes are usually located, so big bucks in the future. Deku stared at his tablet for a little and decided to take a risk as he clicked the hero spot. After a few minutes, staff entered the auditorium and started handing out gauntlets with screens on them showing a small HUD. Soon a greeting appeared and showed a list of objectives different for each individual based on what hero they picked. As everyone looked at their new accessory, the main screen came to life showing a map of the fake city. The proctor cleared his throat as he began to explain the situation. The city exploded behind him in multiple locations, making the examinees flinch in surprise. Proctor: a terrorist attack has hit the city with bombs causing many buildings to collapse and has started an uncontrollable fire that is slowly consuming more buildings. Due to the chaos, the villains in the area are taking advantage and have either decided to help the terrorists or loot the city. Your job is to restore order to the city and repel the terrorists and villains. The way you pass is through both your own individual effort and a collective effort. You each have objectives listed on the gauntlets we gave you, with them revolving around the class of hero you picked. Once your objectives are complete, you are guaranteed to pass. Good luck. The doors to the city will open in 15 minutes. Anyone that picked Night Prowler will stay here until the second phase. The objectives: combat frontline, defeat 10 villains, don't exceed $20,000 in damages, protect 1 civilian. Combat support, defeat 5 villains, can't exceed $50,000 in damages, help 3 frontliners. Combat crowd control, defeat 20 villains, no damage allowed, help 10 civilians. Rescue, stop the fires, establish a point of security, establish a medical area, establish a evac zone for the civilians, establish a haven for the civilians, save as many civilians as possible. Night prowlers: keep the peace, stop as many crimes as possible, protect the haven and its facilities. Deku looked at his gauntlet and saw he had all the objectives of every single category. Then it finally clicked in his head: a hero before had to do whatever the situation called for, not like now where it seems certain heroes can only do certain things or will be called for certain things. Deku took a calming breath as he realized this will a long exam for him. Deku was half right. You see, the new Hero Association wanted to test how efficient the new payroll would be for heroes, so the objectives for the test could be seen as in quota, but they always wanted to see who truly had the heart of a hero. Izuku in the stands was actually pretty impressed with the changes the association came up with. The morality portion alone would weed out a good portion of the examinees, but he also saw the trick of the practical almost instantly. He knew the practical would wipe out the fakes immediately, making him happy. It's a shame most of UA will most likely fail. The bells rung and the doors opened, signaling the heroes were allowed to enter the trial, which they did, but the first strike already occurred as the heroes pushed each other out of the way, racing towards the villains, even some attacking each other in frustration. The spectators sighed in disappointment as the test was already turning into a complete train wreck. Luckily Ua, Shiketsu, the girl academy that I forgot the name of, and Ms. Joke's school stayed as a unit as they went to their locations, but even then the next major flaw showed itself. There was hundreds of combat heroes, most of them probably frontliners, while left behind in the mess of a city was a handful of rescue heroes. As Deku was running towards the front lines he noticed this and barely for a second he thought about which was the right choice before running towards the lost rescue heroes. Bakugo looked back while running towards the front lines but just scoffed as he blasted a villain. Deku stopped in front of the panicking rescue heroes and quickly looked them over. He recognized Uraraka, Jiro, and Shoji. Besides them there was only 5 others, all from what he could tell were all from different schools. Deku inspected the area and nodded his head as they should be a decent spot. He quickly told Uraraka to start clearing the street of debris so they could use the 4-way intersections as the haven, security point and medical area. Uraraka didn't even question him as she quickly started moving the rubble. Deku then ordered Shoji and Jiro to start searching for survivors and to mark them on their map gauntlets and he'll pick them up. The two nodded as they ran in opposite directions. Deku looked down as he already started to get pings on his minimap. Forgot to add the gauntlets are like Fallout style so they have minimaps that help the examinees communicate amongst each other. Deku turned to the remaining 5 as they all had nervous looks on their faces. Deku quickly asked for their quirks and what they do. The 5 looked amongst each other before they reluctantly revealed their quirks. One boy had the power to manipulate water as long as he had a source but he uses it for too long he could gain brain damage. The next boy had the ability to mold earth into any form he wanted, the only stopgap being his imagination and how much earth he has access to, however it requires much concentration. The remaining 3 were girls. The next was a petite girl who said she could make a dome-like field that can make any person in said dome feel whatever emotion she wants. As long as she is calm the dome will stay intact. She can only do 2 emotions at the same time. The next one had the ability to heal any wound she could as long as she had the stamina, and the next had the ability to restore someone's stamina at the cost of her body fat. Deku thought a plan in 4 seconds before he started ordering the 5 what to do. He told the water user to combat the fire and broke a fire hydrant giving him the water he needed. He ordered the earth user to make a wall at each street of the intersection, making 4 walls each touching the buildings on the corner so they could have more space. Once that was down he needed to make several medium-sized medical tents in the middle of the haven and then make several small buildings for the uninjured to take shelter. He told the emotion girl to make a dome of calm and hopeful emotions to keep the civilians happy. He told the healing girl to heal anyone that came in and the stamina girl to give the healer stamina. The 5 looked reluctant if they should listen to him but Deku's smile just radiated, "Follow me." So quickly the 5 each went to do their assigned task, with the water guy trying to stop the fire spread since he knew he wasn't strong enough to completely put out the fires. The earth guy was slowly making the haven with a bulge on his head as he manipulated the earth into what he wanted. The emotion girl put her hand on the ground, slowly make a yellow dome surround the construction of the haven with slight effort. Deku nodded in happiness before turning serious as he powered up to 45% full cowl. Deku blurred through the city taking out any stray villain he came across, tossing rubble aside as he saved another civilian, using a car as an shield to protected civilians, taking out more villains, carrying more civilians on his back, tossing villains aside while protecting civilians, and doing it all with a smile. Even if he looked gruff or got a little cut he always kept the smile on his face. Deku dropped off the last civilian and went to help the water guy who he found struggling with the fire and who was drenched in shit and had a large bloody nose. Deku landed next to him and clapped his hands, making a large gust that completely snuffed the fires. Deku caught the water guy before he collapsed and started to bring him towards the haven. As he was making his way he noticed more and more villains were making it through the front lines, and that's when noticed more and more of the heroes just stopped fighting or just leaving. That's when it finally hit Deku and caused him to grow angry. Deku. They stopped helping because they reached the quota. Fucking. Aw, forget it. I'll handle it. After Deku dropped off the water guy he knocked out any villain that even got close to the haven. After he saw Uraraka starting to hold off some villains with Jiro and Shoji, Izuku started to spread his fighting further, knocking villain after villain out, causing a certain boss villain to smirk as she started to bounce towards Deku and dropping some dual-haired emo to the ground. While Deku dropped another villain to the ground he felt something in the back of his head scream at him to dodge, which he trusted and did, barely avoiding a super kick to the back of the head. Deku backflipped and got into a stance as he couldn't help but get nervous as the boss villain started to cackle and bounce in place. The woman had her white hair tied in a ponytail while wearing casual workout clothes with visible restraints on her wrists and ankles. Deku noticed the ankle ones were way bigger than the wrist ones. The previously number 5 hero Maruko stared at Deku with a crazed smile causing him to gulp. Maruko. I never got to get my rematch with your future self, so I guess you'll do for now. Get ready boy, because here I come. Maruko bounced and launched herself at Deku, aiming for a dropkick at his face with him barely dodging with a tilt as the buzzing in back of his head going off again. What he didn't expect was for Maruko to flip with the landing and use the nearby building as an launchpad and going for Deku again, but with a roundhouse to his neck forcing him to block but still get sent flying down the street. Maruko chased after him while laughing as she went for an axe kick to his face, forcing Deku to block again, but this time he was able to brace himself with full cowl 45%, causing Maruko to grin as she felt the thrill rise in her spirits. The two clashed with a kick as they started to brawl throughout the war-torn city, with Deku subtly lead her away from the haven and undamaged city. Maruko noticed it but didn't care, even though as her job she was supposed to. She was having too much fun with this kid. Every kick that landed on Deku made his bones rattle and ache, but he didn't care. He needed to win. For All Might, for Mom, for Uraraka. He can't let them down. Deku powered up to 50% as he charged at Maruko, landing a kick to her stomach, surprising her as she got launched across the street. She corrected herself in the air instantly as she started yanking the restraints off with a crazed smile, causing Deku to slowly raise his percentage as he caught his breath. Maruko. You're different. I can feel it. All these weaklings couldn't even make me care, let alone sweat. You were worth the effort. You are different. The two clashed again, fighting throughout the city as Maruko was going all out while laughing wildly and Deku just barely holding his own, even at 65%. He may have been way stronger than her, however experience and skill-wise Deku almost stood no chance. The only reason he's lasted this long is because of that buzzing in the back of his head and his own stubbornness. As Maruko was about to land the knock blow on Deku, the bell rang, signaling the end of the first exam, causing Maruko to scream in frustration as Deku flopped to his knees in exhaustion. Bakugo and the good portion of heroes that returned to the briefing room after they completed their objectives couldn't help but feel small as they watched the fight between Maruko and Deku. Bakugo felt his ego take a hit as he started to grind his teeth and clench his fist in anger. There was a 30-minute grace period given before the Night Prowler portion, which Deku used to take a nap and heal his bruises. Luckily the two girls that were on the rescue squad healed his wounds and restored his stamina. He thanked them, but they just shrugged it off and said it was the least they could do, since they knew they would have lost without him. The dome of the arena was closed and the lights were turned off besides the few that were in the city, making it seem like they were actually patrolling a city in the dead of night. Deku saw he had even less teammates now, with it only being Shinsho, Tokiyami and that guy who was pitch black in 1B. Deku quickly made a plan where Tokiyami would guard the haven and its surrounding streets while Deku would take the north and west side of the city, Shinsho the south side and the last one on the east side. They quickly agreed, with them separating and promising to contact if they needed help. The Prowler portion wasn't too bad considering Deku was just zooming through the city knocking out any villain he came across. Soon, the exam was over and the examinees were taken to the auditorium where the big screen lit up and showed the results of the passers while the proctor looked at them with a neutral look. There were hundreds of names, with a good portion of UA cheering as they saw their name. Deku felt his world crash on him as he didn't see his. Bakugo couldn't help but smirk as he saw his on there and not Deku's. The cheers and murmurs were interrupted by the proctor clearing his throat. Proctor. As you can see, this is the list of names of the people that passed if this was the old exam and hero system. You see, the old exam heavily favored the people with flashy or strong quirks, maybe both. However, as evident by that future viewing from a few months ago, we realized flashy and strong quirks don't equal a great hero or a loyal one. So, he decided to test something in this exams, whether a hero would stop being hero once they reached their passing objective or a paying quota. The results were unfortunately exactly what we expected. Here is the only people that passed the exam. The 458 names that were on the passing turned to 19, making the temperature in the room drop as hundreds of people just watched their names get erased. Deku looked up with tears as he saw his name appear at the top, but for some reason was in gold. He saw all the Rikyū heroes with him, a few names he didn't recognize, and all the Night Prowler heroes. Besides that, those were the only ones who passed. Proctor. These are the only people that passed the exam and in our eyes the ideal hero we had in mind. For the rest of you, some of you could still become heroes in the next exam. Just take the time to look at yourself and find where you went wrong. While most of you will be reviewed if we should even let you become heroes, you will receive a letter in the coming weeks telling you which category you fall in. Before I dismiss you all, Izuku Midoriya can please make your way up to the stage. Excuse me, the present one please. Deku gulped as he slowly made his way up stiffly before standing awkwardly next to the proctor. Proctor. Izuku here choose the final option hero which not a single other person choose. You probably all thought since it didn't have a fancy title like frontliner or support it must be useless. You see, if you choose the hero option you would have to accomplish every single goal of the other categories, essentially an impossible task, but that didn't stop Izuku here. If anything, he exceeded our expectations. The reason he didn't pass the first time was because he was to perfect something the old Hero Association would have never allowed, since it would have conflicted with the image that no one can come close to All Might. However, we are not the old Hero Association, we are better. Now here is something for completely the hero category and more. The proctor handed Deku a license with him looking at it with thanks until he read the title, and he just looked back up at the proctor with a shocked look. The proctor just patted his back and smiled as he looked to the crowd again. Proctor. Due to the fact Izuku completed the hero category and did it with immense skill, strategy and technique. Instead of the normal provisional license he should get, instead he will receive the full hero license. He still has to attend hero school, but now when he interns he will be considered a sidekick instead of an intern and get credit for his deeds. That is all for the provisional exams. You all are dismissed. It was a blur rest of the day, Deku him celebrating with Uraraka and the few that got a license, while the rest just silently sat in the bus depressed with their failure. Bakugo just kept his eyes on Deku the whole time, clenching his fist in anger as he felt himself snapping. Izuku watched from the corner of his eye and couldn't help but sigh in disappointment. Narrator Pav. The last chapter. The day after the exams, Izuku was on a roof looking at the arguing Deku and Bakugo in one of the fake cities. Unfortunately, it seemed they were going to fight just like he did with his Kachan. A shame he wasn't going to let it happen. As they were about to charge, Izuku appeared between the two, making them stop. Izuku. Go inside now, no one's fighting today. Also probably should have picked a different day besides the same day I had my fight. Bakugo. Not until he fights me. He needs to prove to me he deserves that power and not me. Izuku. He doesn't need to prove anything. He isn't All Might and he won't be me. He will be Izuku Midoriya, the hero Deku. It's not like you would even survive if you got the quirk anyway. Bakugo. Huh, you don't think I could handle your baby quirk? Izuku. It wouldn't matter how well you could handle the quirk, you would have died probably not even a couple of years after getting it. If OFA is given to a person that already has quirk, I will shorten their lifespan dramatically, especially if that person had a strong quirk. OFA was meant to be wielded by quirkless people, which is why me and Deku here will be the last users. Izuku looked at Deku and saw he had a terrified look on his face from the news, causing Izuku to panic. Izuku. Oh, don't worry Deku, you'll still live a long life. I hope. Izuku. Now back to you Bakugo. This is your last warning. If you don't stop this and change your attitude, you will never be a hero or anywhere near the top. Bakugo lunged at Izuku with rage but got bitch slapped into a wall, embedding him into it with shock. Izuku walked up to him and just looked at Bakugo with disappointment. Izuku. Bakugo, I know you saw my memories of you beating me, but you don't know the context. I wasn't 70% or 90%, nowhere near 100%. I was at 8% and you barely won, and even then I was holding back. What makes you think you can take on Deku here, who is pushing 70%? Humble yourself Bakugo if you ever want to be a hero. Not long after, Aizawa came and delivered his punishment to Bakugo, which was the same as canon. Deku didn't get it this time since he didn't do anything, but Aizawa did say he was on thin ice, causing the young man to gulp in fear. Izuku sighed in a tired manner as he went back to his room to sleep. Izuku just watched as the time passed with Deku doing his sidekick gig with Mirko, which he thought was pretty funny, since he would come home with a new bruise every day and a scared expression. To Izuku's delight, Bakugo had actually taken his words to heart, since he actually has calmed down significantly and even seemed to be trying to mend his relationship with Deku. As the time passed, Izuku did only a few things: spend time with Eri, help the class with their quirks, and even help some of them with general training. He only does the training for a couple of months since he doesn't want them to be over-reliant on him, which is why his training with Uraraka ended after the exam. Speaking of Uraraka, the next thing has been driving Izuku crazy. The fact Deku and Uraraka still refuse to acknowledge each other's feelings. He knows they like each other, and he also has a feeling they know the same about each other. So, he doesn't understand what's so hard about it. Was he this dense, and was Uraraka really this stubborn? Because seriously, this was starting to get annoying. He tried to subtly push them together, but either Deku was too dense or Uraraka caught on too fast. So right now that was on the back burners of his plans. Soon Nabu Island came, with Izuku going with Eri as both a chaperone and him on a vacation, mostly the vacation part. Since Deku had his hero license, he was charge of the whole thing. Izuku spent of the time at the beach or amusement park. He met Katsuma and his sister, and luckily the island doesn't have much access to the outside world, so they had no idea who he was. He didn't interact much besides change the sister's view on heroes. He mostly just forced Eri to socialize with them, making her annoyed. The whole time though on the island, Izuku was making Uraraka and Deku closer without them ever realizing it. He did it so well, Izuku was pretty certain Deku was head over heels for her, and the same with Uraraka. Now it was just a matter of time before they got together. You wonder how he did this? Simple. He just kept making fake crimes every time they were in the same district, and the searching for a criminal that didn't exist turned into the two of them on a pseudo-date. Time continued to pass with the change of the weather as snow started to fall along with Christmas decorations. It's been almost a year and a half since Izuku arrived in the past, and honestly he felt it was close to his time. Soon Christmas came, and Izuku watched as everyone laughed and celebrated, exchanging gifts. Eri was even smiling with the others as he had spent some time making her socialize with the others. Izuku saw Deku bring Uraraka outside, causing him to grow a soft smile since he knew what was going to happen. Sure enough, after a little while they both came back in with large smiles as they announced they were officially dating. Everyone ran to them and started congratulating, with Izuku taking a long sigh before laying on an armchair. Thump. Izuku took a deep breath as he felt himself lose feeling. He looked at his right hand and saw his ring finger starting to crack in blue light as pieces started to break off and float up before turning into blue particles. Izuku patted Eri's head with his left as he hid his right in his pocket and said to go celebrate some more and he'll be outside to get air. Izuku stepped outside and sat on a bench not far from the dorms since he felt weak. Izuku pulled his hand out of his pocket, showing it was already at his palm, still cracking and slowly breaking off into more blue particles. It didn't hurt, but it did make Izuku feel scared as the feeling just disappeared as more and more cracked and disappeared. The front door busted open, making Izuku jump and turn, to which he saw Mina looking around before smiling as she saw him. Mina. Dekiru. We wondered what happened. You. Come inside. Denki brought out Uno. Mina came running to him and stopped when she saw the glowing blue cracks running up Izuku's arm up to his elbow and the particle decay at his wrist now. Mina screamed in horror, alerting the rest of the class as they came running out to the sight of a dying Izuku. They quickly went up to him in panic as they checked on him. Momo. Oh my god. Dekiru. What happened? Kirishima. Iida, go get recovery girl and the staff. Iida. Right. Deku. Come on me. We have to get you to recovery girl. They tried to pull Izuku up, but he didn't budge and instead just nodded his head no. As his legs started to crack as well, slowly turning into blue particles at the tip of his toes. Izuku. It's okay guys. My time is up. No point in making a fuss. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy, but he just raised his uncracked hand as in signal to give a second. He sighed and began to explain. Izuku. I'm from a future that doesn't exist anymore. And since it doesn't exist, neither should I. This was always going to happen, so don't be sad or worry. The realization dawned on the smarter ones of the group, which quickly got whispered to the rest of the class until they fully understood what Izuku said. He was going to die. Iida had returned with staff and the situation was quickly explained, causing many to grow sad. Shoto. Wouldn't that just create a paradox? Momo. Yeah, Since you came to the past to change the future, you being erased from existence would just make a paradox and cause our timeline to not exist and start the cycle again. Izuku chuckled as the cracking reached his shoulders and knees. Izuku, that's what I thought too when the god told me the deal, but from what he explained that's not how time works. Imagine a straight line with an arrow as my timeline. I went back making a new line that came out of mine taking the arrow with it. After a certain point when this timeline passes the old one will simply decay into nothingness, allowing the new timeline to prosper on its own without any complications. So no, you don't have to worry about any paradoxes. However, I stayed here any longer I would have caused both timelines to collapse on each other since I was the only anchor left keeping the old timeline alive. This was always going to happen. Deku. Did the god trick you? Izuku. No, quite the opposite actually. He made sure I understood what was going to happen to me before I accepted. Flashback. Before you accept fully, I need to at least tell you what will happen to you. Izuku. What? Once you change the future to much, you will start to disappear into nothingness. It will feel like you're empty and weak. The way you can truly tell is when you start to crack. Once that happens, there is nothing you can do. However, I feel nice today, so you don't have to worry about the timeline change too much, since I will freeze your timeline until you are satisfied with your changes. However, I can only hold it for 2 years or I might risk losing both your timelines. Izuku. I see, and what happens when I disappear? It'll be like you never existed. Your timeline, your home. Everything will cease to exist at the cost of saving this timeline. Now, I will ask one more time. How much will it cost to save a world? Izuku. No matter the cost. I see. The god unfroze time and allowed Izuku to leave, which he quickly did as he ran to the explosion. Good luck, hero. End of flashback. Izuku. By the way, I'm not telling the catalyst that started this. I know you would just try to change it. So, this will be our final goodbye. Izuku smiled as the cracking started to cover his up to his neck. Izuku. Eri, be a good girl for me. I love you and will never stop loving you. For the rest of you, be the best heroes this world has ever seen. They nodded with tear-filled eyes as they tried to remain strong. Izuku just continued to smile as finally stopped holding back the cracking. He closed his eyes as the cracking consumed him and he disappeared into blue particles. The class broke down as they saw the last of the particles disappear into the snowy night sky. Izuku opened his eyes to a white void, causing him to grow confused. He looked around and just saw endless white that went on for, he couldn't tell. It felt like there was no end nor no beginning. Was he dead or something else entirely? You truly are an interesting person, Izuku Midoriya, no matter the universe. Izuku. It's you, and it's me. Truly an interesting way of changing the future. Another, you decided the villains were worth saving yet you saw them as unredeemable. Truly fascinating. Izuku. Did it work? Take a look. The hooded god waved his hand, making a small window appeared which showed an even older him standing on podium that said number 1 along with many other of his classmates around having different ranks. Izuku just smiled in relief as the window closed with the god facing Izuku now. Izuku. So what now? Do I go to the afterlife or something? Unfortunately that doesn't happen to souls from dead timelines. Don't worry, your friends and family died before the erasure, so they're safe. However, you will just cease to exist, I'm sorry. Though I do have an offer for you if you're interested. Izuku. I mean, anything beats being nothing. I want you to join my time patrollers. The job is simple, you fight people that try to mess with time illegally and watch over time. Izuku. Let me guess, you want me there because I'm super strong. Humble, I see. Nah, you probably be average there in strength level, but not everyone has the heart to do what is necessary like you do. So, what do you say? Izuku. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.